Hold up, I am on my way, I'm in motion. Let's go to the ocean. Yeah, let's go outside. We can hang out on the beach without freezing.
Welcome to Crafty Beach. This is Julie. Today I have 15 coastal fall Dollar Tree DIYs that I've made so far this year on my channel. So it is a coastal fall crafting marathon, and I hope you enjoy today's video. I wanted to do like a coastal pumpkin scene, and I'm going to actually put it on one of these little square pumpkin signs from the Dollar Tree. They're already kind of coastal with the burlap on there and the light blue color, but I want to replace the words on there and make it look really pretty. So I do want to like remove these little bump out wood portions, but since it's glued on paper, I found even with heat, it was impossible to get those off there cleanly. So you're going to have to rip the paper to remove this part. I'm going to try to save these though to use them in the final project. But since I already ripped the paper, I just went ahead and ripped the rest of the paper off the front of this, which actually gives me more of a blank canvas. I don't normally like to do that, but it was inevitable on this one. And I just simply used a sanding block to remove any remaining paper on there, but I'm gonna leave like the blue color on the outsides of the pumpkin because that's gonna be perfect for the coastal theme. Now, I designed a free printable for this, and I will include it down in the description of today's video of this beautiful watercolor of these white pumpkins and a little starfish on the beach. And I did size it perfectly to these signs, which you should be able to find at your Dollar Tree this year. I printed mine out on cardstock. It makes it a lot easier to Mod Podge on without any wrinkling or anything like that, and you don't really have to let it dry. I am going to do that and then put these little blue side pieces back on. I just have to kind of remove the paper from those as well. Now, this is pretty easy to do, just to sand off the paper on these, and the color is perfect, so I really don't have to paint those or anything like that. And then what I want to do is just simply Mod Podge this pumpkin scene here onto the front of the pumpkin. I did have to use a lot of Mod Podge because it kind of soaked into the cardboard there since I did remove the paper. But I just add that and add my printable right on top and just smoothing that out, making sure I don't have any air bubbles. I was trying to determine whether I should cut the wood slats back in the sign or leave it as is because it looks really pretty as it is, but I decided to actually cut it. I just sealed it with some more Mod Podge there on top and then made sure I didn't have any paper there on the edges. Now, you would think you would be able to kind of feel where this little ridge is to cut. I just cut mine with a razor blade, and you actually really kind of have to remove the little slip of paper that would go in the crack. Normally these are a little bit easier to cut with the wood signs from the Dollar Tree, but I noticed that this sign is like maybe like an MDF or more of a, like a cardboard like sign, so it was a little tricky doing this without cutting all of my paper, but I probably should have let it dry a little bit more because I did have a little bit of tearing, but it's coastal farmhouse, so I can't have a little bit of distressed look, and I just tried to remove as much paper there from that little slot as possible to clean that up a little bit, and I was able to make it work. I did tear the paper a tiny bit, but I just touched it up with a little bit of paint to make it look better here on my stems, and I think we can make that work. I really love this scene. I think it's so pretty. I will include the link to that printable, and you can recreate whatever you want, but I really do like it on the pumpkin board sign. I'm going to seal it with a little bit more Mod Podge to fix any damage, and then we can attach these little blue pieces back on just with hot glue in about the same exact position that they were on there before. And I love this look. I think it's so pretty and coastal. It really doesn't need a lot. It's already got the little burlap bow on there, but I thought a starfish would finish it off. And did you know you could use these little grow creatures from the toy aisle at the Dollar Tree for some coastal decor? This starfish has a really great texture on it. It's kind of realistic looking, but it's too bright and orange. So I'm going to tone it down a little bit with some Beachcombers beige acrylic paint here. And I will let a little bit of the orange shine through because I think that'll be cool, but only like on these little ridges or bumps that stick up out of the top of the starfish. I just kind of wiped off the paint from those with a baby wipe, and now I have a much more neutral looking little starfish I can add here to the top. They're pretty lightweight as well, and they don't really grow unless you get them wet, so paint doesn't really affect them at all. I just attach it to the top of my little coastal pumpkin here, and this is how this DIY turned out. It was quick and easy, especially with my little pumpkin printable of that beautiful watercolor scene, and it took one of those plain signs from the Dollar Tree with the words on them that can be a little much and just made it a beautiful work of art. I think that that image is so pretty, and I love this light blue color scheme for fall. If you're enjoying today's video so far, be sure to hit that like button and don't forget to hype my channel. I'd really appreciate it. I wanted to see if I could make some pumpkin buoys. I thought that'd be a really fun idea. So I picked up 5 different pumpkins from the Dollar Tree. Now these are the fabric covered ones, but I knew they would have like a foam pumpkin underneath. And I thought these would be perfect, but you can kind of use whatever you have. These are not quite as big as, the traditional foam pumpkins that you use for crafting, but I kind of like the shape of these. I think they look a little bit better than the larger ones from Dollar Tree. And so I just removed the pumpkin stems from all of these so I can get the fabric material off of them. They were all pretty easy. You could also do the fabric covered ones from the Dollar Tree. I think they're pretty much going to have the same foam pumpkin underneath. I do like to work with odd numbers. I would suggest like 3. I'm going to do 5 of mine. And not all of my pumpkins are the same size, but I kind of like that too. So now I have 5 foam pumpkins and I have 5 of the pumpkin stems. Now I do need to poke a hole in the center of all of these so I can string them like buoys. And so I'm just going to do that with a wooden dowel there from the Dollar Tree and push that straight through. Now be careful. The foam can really, go crazy if you're not too careful with this step. Now, buoys are pretty forgiving because buoys a lot of times are supposed to look kind of beat up, right? And so you do have a little bit of forgiveness if you kind of cut yours crazy, but most of mine turned out pretty good. Now the little foam does make a little bit of a mess, so be aware of that. And then I want to paint all of the pumpkins to look like buoys. So I want there to be several different varieties and the same color scheme. For this one, I'm just going to paint the center of it white. I'm going to have a white stripe around the center like you would see on a buoy. So I just go over that with some white acrylic paint. And I am going to do the same thing with this one. So I think I'm going to have 2 of the little pumpkin buoys be 3 colors, and then the rest of them be 2 colors. So for the rest of them, I'm just going to paint the top half of the pumpkin white. And so I just go over those all with some white acrylic. I love using the little stencil dauber paintbrushes like that. You can get those at Dollar Tree. And I've been actually getting them on Amazon lately. I think they might be a little bit cheaper on there. You can get a whole box of them. But they're great for sponge painting like this. And it just makes it a little bit easier with the little handle on there, right? And I went over 3 of them, top half white. And then I will do the bottom half of the pumpkin in blues and oranges. For the blue, I'm mixing a turquoise color together with some white to give me the perfect shade of blue. And then I'm going to do the 3 color little pumpkin buoys first. I just use some painter's tape. It's a little hard to get the painter's tape to stick to the shape of the pumpkin. But again, this doesn't have to be perfect. I just get it on there the best I can. And I did paint the center of these white already. I know that they're already white, but styrofoam doesn't look as good until it's painted. It makes it look a little bit better. And so it's kind of a texture thing on those. So now that I have the white stripe taped off for these, I can paint these the turquoise blue. I'm going to do this one turquoise blue here on the top with a white stripe, and then I'm going to do an orange color there at the bottom. So a lot of painting on this first project, but I absolutely love the result. A lobster buoy is just such a fun idea. For this one, I'm going to paint half of it blue as well, just sponging that on. And since they're already white, they're pretty easy to paint with like 1 coat of paint. Now I painted the other 3. Remember, I painted the top half white. So I do need to tape that off so I will still get a crisp line. And I just do it kind of lined up to the halfway point of the pumpkin. And we're going to make this one half white, half that turquoise color. And I just paint that one on. what I'm going to do is hang all of the little pumpkin lobster buoys together in a bundle. These would also be really cute just kind of sitting around. I love buoy DIYs, and usually you have to carve them and everything. Making a lobster buoy is just such a fun, unique take for fall, and it's just so much easier too. It's just painting. For this one, I'm going to do it turquoise too, so half white, half turquoise. My third color that I'm going to be bringing into this is an orange color. I'm going to be using like a pumpkin orange mixed with a little white too, just to kind of have like the same kind of shade of colors, if you will. And I'm going to start first here with one of the three color. I still have my white stripe taped off so I can go over this. When I get to the painter's tape, I'm just kind of trying to paint over the top of it very gently so I don't get a lot of bleeding, since I know that the painter's tape is a little hard to go around all those little bumps of the pumpkin. This is my other three color one. I'm going to go over this with orange as well. And I'm going to be doing a lot of pumpkin DIYs today, but I'm going to be transforming the pumpkins into different things. And I have a little bit of a coastal take on everything. It's such a fun idea. Now for this one, I'm going to have this one be half white, half orange, like I did the half white, half turquoise ones, for a little bit of variety. And you can paint your buoys however you want. I think the stripes or the two-tone like that really kind of makes it look like a buoy. For the pumpkin stems, they are kind of distressed with gold metallic, which doesn't really make sense for this. So I'm going to kind of do my own color scheme on this. And the first thing I did was distress them with like a beachcomber beige, just a tan color. And I will go back and distress these a little bit more to try to get more of a natural pumpkin stem look. The shape of them are great though. They're some of my favorite pumpkin stems from the Dollar Tree. So a total of 5 of those. So let's go ahead and remove the painter's tape and see how these turned out. I had really good luck as far as no bleeding on these. So there is my white and orange pumpkin. This is going to be my white and turquoise pumpkin. Aren't these so cute? They're even cuter when you put the pumpkin stems back on, which we are definitely going to do to really make them look like pumpkins. Before we put it all together, we put the pumpkin stem back on it. I really love the 3-colored one. This one I did get a little bit of bleeding and it is a little bit dented, but again, we just got back from New England and the buoys up there are all a little beat up, so I think it kind of goes with the territory. But I will touch up my white on that to give me a little bit crisper line where I had some bleeding on that one. And then for the pumpkin stems, I let that paint dry and I went over and distressed it with some antique wax by Waverly just to bring in some more brown colors to this. I was really trying to mask the gold on there. I didn't really want that on there. Okay, so everything is painted. Now we can string these together. For the rope, I'm using the thinner brown rope from the Dollar Tree, and I'm going to try to feed this in here. The only bad thing about this is my paint was a little wet on the inside. It was hard for me to get that dry. I didn't want to melt my foam with my heat gun, so I just kind of had to pull the rope through and knot it where the rope looks sort of clean afterwards, and try not to get too much paint on the rope itself. For the top, I need to attach my pumpkin stem back on there, and so I just add a little hot glue to make sure it stays put. And I'm also going to be hot gluing the rope to the side of the pumpkin stem so it will still kind of stay upright and it will be kind of hidden where the rope comes through behind the pumpkin stem. Now, this one I'm going to go ahead and do 2 pumpkins on the same piece of rope because I'm going to be stringing these all together in a wall hanging of buoys. So I just kind of estimate about how much rope I want to leave on there, and then I'm going to string this through one of the other ones. I'm not really doing like a pattern with the colors. I'm just kind of picking them at random to hang together. And again, I just kind of string this through the top all the way through. And I don't know if I could have maybe punched a larger hole in there. Might have made it a little bit easier to string it through there. I was able to pull mine through with a pair of pliers on this one because this one was not really wanting to come through. And again, I pull it through, tying that off, trying to avoid the paint on the rope. If you have time to let that sit and dry a little bit, that's going to definitely improve that part for you. And then I add a little hot glue here in the center and add my pumpkin stem gluing the rope to the side. So these two are going to be strung together, but I'm also going to be stringing more together with this. And I really love this idea. It just turned out so cute. The little foam pumpkins into buoys. I think it's a really creative idea. I don't think I've ever seen anybody do this. I tried to get really creative with today's DIYs, and I'd really appreciate it if you would like, comment, and share on today's video. YouTube has definitely been slow, and I'm trying my best to get it to pick up over here. That's why I'm bringing you an entire hour full of all new fall DIYs today. I keep stringing that last one. I just did one on a single rope because I have an odd number. And then I string and knot this one, adding the pumpkin stem. And then the other end of this one, I can add my fifth and final little pumpkin buoy. These were really fun to make. I think they turned out so cute. I love the stripes on there. If you wanted to add like some numbers or something like that to the side of your pumpkins, like they do when they like number the buoys, that would be really cute too. You could even do words if you wanted to. So now that I have like my 3 bundles, I guess, I'm going to form a little loop here at the top. Take another one and actually tie that together so they're kind of tied together at the top. So that's 4 of them. And then I have my 5th one here that I also need to add. I want them to all be hanging a little bit different heights. And I just attach them all here at the top, tying that off. As long as I have a little loop hanger there, I think that is going to work perfectly. And this is how it turned out. Our little pumpkin lobster buoys, perfect for a coastal fall. I think these would look really good instead of a wreath on your front door or as a wall hanging. I haven't decided. I think I might just use mine as a wall hanging. For this DIY, we're going to use the smaller pumpkin stack from the Dollar Tree. Currently, this one is $1.50 at my Dollar Tree, and it's just the one that's all orange, but it doesn't really matter which color scheme you get on these because we're going to paint them anyway. I wanted to see if I could transform these into a pumpkin stack mermaid. It actually turned out so cute. So for the bottom pumpkin, the largest pumpkin, I'm going to make that be representing the mermaid tail. Now, it's not going to have like a fin or anything like that, but I wanted to have the mermaid scales and colors. So I'm using my hot glue, and I just went all the way around. I made sure not to go too high with that because I didn't want it to interfere with the pumpkin above it. But basically, I just went with the little sections of the pumpkin and did loop-de-loops here. And now, for the next row, you start about halfway in the middle of each circle, and you just connect them to the next one about halfway. And I just continue that all the way around. So for the third row, I just use the lines for reference again and meet those up in the middle of the one above it. And I just keep doing that pattern all the way down. I tried to minimize as many hot glue strings as I could because you're going to be able to see that when this sets up and I start to paint it. I do have room here for a few more rows. I want to go all the way to the bottom with the mermaid scales. This is going to be a big piece of this mermaid pumpkin stack. So I'm going to actually clean that up a little bit. I wanted to really make sure I got all of the strings off of it. And I'm going to set that aside. That hot glue will set up. I'm going to paint everything with this heirloom white. It's like an ivory color of spray paint. And I'm going to use that for all of the pieces. I'm going to make the tail piece a different color, but I thought it would be easier if I started with that ivory color before I try to change the orange to something pretty and coastal. So first I flipped them over just to make sure to do the little bottom part there of it, because when I flip them over, that part's really not going to get a lot of spray paint. And I just went over them with a good coat of the spray paint. I like the way the spray paint looked because I got just a perfect glossy finish on these. And I'm going to need that for these 2 pieces. So I think spray paint was the best. I often struggle with using spray paint due to like high humidity in my area in Florida. It's sticky, it takes a while to dry, but for this, I thought it was important to use it, at least for these 2 parts. And then I'm going to use it to cover the bottom section too of the tail. But I'm also going to use acrylic paints on that too. So I just made sure to get everything coated with these. The top pumpkin is going to represent the mermaid head. The middle section is going to be like her chest. And then the bottom part here is going to be the mermaid tail. So I had set this aside. I actually put it in my refrigerator to let it harden faster while I was painting the other two. And I am just spray painting that as well. So you can see the great texture on there. It really gives you the look of a mermaid tail that I was going for. And I think I can pull this off. I did set these up on just like some recycling and stuff like that so that I could paint them a little bit better. But let's focus on one pumpkin at a time to decorate this. I'm going to start with the tail first. I already did that great little fish scale texture all over. Now we are going to paint it some fun coastal colors, something that I think would look really pretty for a mermaid. First, I'm going over with this color. I believe this is the teal color, Dollar General brand. And I do make sure to use a brush too to go underneath like that lip there on the top pumpkin. But otherwise, I want to sponge everything on. So I'm using one of those little sponge stencil daubers. You can get those at Dollar Tree, or I have actually been ordering them by the case on Amazon. I'll have to make sure I have those added to my Amazon shop, linked in the description, because I love them for crafting and I go through a lot of these. So I am just painting it all in. You can see I'm painting the scales, I'm painting the pumpkin, everything. I am going to go in here with another color and kind of make this two-toned and distressed even more, which I really love. And for a mermaid, you could really do like any kind of color scheme you wanted to do. I wanted to do something that would look great with my coastal decor. So I'm going to stick with like the turquoises and the blues for this one. But I just kind of took my time and went section by section all over the bottom pumpkin to make sure everything was that beautiful blue color. And I wanted to also make sure that I didn't have any orange peeking out anywhere, especially like around the scales. I think I did a pretty good job of getting good coverage on that. Now I let that dry and then I go back in. I'm just switching it up to a smaller little sponge stencil dauber. And I'm going in with this color. This one is Blue Cotton by Apple Barrel. And as you can see, it's more of a blue color. I thought this would be a fun contrast with the teal color. And I'm basically just dragging the paint over the actual texture of the fish scales that we put on the mermaid tail there. So I don't care if I get some on the actual pumpkin itself back there, because I do want it to all be distressed with the two different colors together. So I'm just sponging it on and going with that. But I did want to make sure that all of the scales were that beautiful blue color. It provides a contrast against the teal, but since they're both blues, they really work together and it's not too much of a contrast. So I really like how they look together. And I did that all the way up on every single row. And I just went over it with a baby wipe to kind of blend it together if I got maybe a little bit too much paint on the teal, and just to kind of distress everything. This is what it looks like at this point. I think it's so pretty. We will shine that up in a little bit because the spray paint that I used on the other two parts of the pumpkin here was a satin. So it does have a little bit of a shine, as you can see when I put the two together. I have that flat color from my paint, and so I do want the tail to be shiny too. To fix that, I am going in with some Mod Podge gloss and just spraying that on, and that will give me a glossy sheen here for the tail part of our pumpkin stack as well. Anything with really a glossy sealer I think would work. I just had some gloss Mod Podge, so I used that one. For the second pumpkin in the pumpkin stack, this is going to be like the chest area of the mermaid. So I'm going to use some seashells. I have some plastic seashells from the Dollar Tree and some twine, and we are going to make a little shell bikini top for our mermaid. I know a lot of you guys ask me where I get my little twine keeper there that I use for my Dollar Tree twine. That is a yarn keeper from Dollar Tree, so keep your eye out for that. It works fantastic for twine. I'm going to cut a piece of twine that's long enough to go all the way around the second pumpkin, and I'm just going to attach the bottom of the little shells. These are the plastic shells from the Dollar Tree, but you could always use real seashells. I thought these would be perfect because they're exactly the same size, and I can always paint them if I want to. I just glued those on, and then I'm going to need two more pieces here for the bikini top for our shells. So I just flip them over, and I'm going to glue that there, just coming out the corners of the top of the shell there on the back, and making them long enough to be able to tie those around the pumpkin as well. I had so much fun coming up with this fun mermaid pumpkin stack for you. I first start by gluing the little plastic shell on with some hot glue just around the edges, and I kind of skip a section there in the pumpkin and then glue the other one on like that. And it can be a little shell top. For the mermaid, I take the bottom one and just wrap that all the way around, tying that off here on the back. That will help keep it on as well and add to the decor. For the top straps here of the little shell top, I'm going to tie those around too, but I kind of need to go ahead and attach the top pumpkin first, which is going to represent the mermaid's head. I then can tie this one on kind of like in the neck area, and I just tie that on where the two pumpkins come together. I am going to leave the pumpkin stem on there because I am going to give her a little shell crown, and so I think we will be able to disguise that. This is what she looks like so far. And of course, every mermaid needs some hair. You could use like grass skirts from the Dollar Tree. That would be cute too. I didn't have any, and so I am going to try rope. And this turned out so pretty. I just cut a piece that I thought would be the right length for her hair, kind of going down to the second pumpkin. And I'm just going to start here on the side of the stem. I hot glue the entire piece of rope on there. We can always separate this later. I'm going to make it look like she has, some beach waves in her little mermaid hair. I glue one on each side like that. I don't want anything blocking her face. I will tie her hair back a little bit, but I use that one piece as reference to cut all of my rope pieces down the same size. And then I am just going to glue all of these pieces on here. It really doesn't matter which one of the brown ropes you get from the Dollar Tree. Either one would work for this. And I am just gluing them all over. I glued like 5, and then I went back in here with 2 more. So a total of 7 so far. And then I'm also going to reinforce that by gluing it on the top to make sure everything stays put. I'm going to go ahead and unwind the rope into 3 layers. That is going to give like the curls here. You could leave it like that. I do end up separating it later to really make her look like she has some mermaid hair. But this is kind of like leaving it in the curlers phase where we can let it out later and it will look really pretty for our mermaid hair. But I just went all the way around and unwound all of those. I do want her to have like some long bangs too that we can tie back. And I want to make her like a crown of seashells. I think that will look really pretty for a mermaid. So I cut 2 more pieces here for the front, and I just glue them here on the front of the pumpkin stem like that, kind of going off to the side. And then make sure those are glued on by gluing those on top as well. And I unwound these 3 pieces too. I thought about tying all 3 pieces back. I felt like it was a little bit too much hair that I was tying back though. So I think I'm going to go in here with only 2 pieces and tie 2 pieces back. And I think that will look really cute. So I just brought those 2 to the back of her hair. I'm going to leave those kind of coiled up like that. I'm not going to brush that out or anything. And I am just going to tie that off with some twine here to make it look like she has her hair tied back a little bit to keep it out of her eyes. Now for the crown, I thought we could make it out of seashells and starfish. I have a great starfish that I got on Temu actually, and I have some seashells I found at the beach. I also have like some of the tiny seashells that I get on Amazon, that big jug of them. I have those linked in my Amazon shop. These are a great deal. They're just like the tiny seashells that Dollar Tree used to sell. I glued a couple of the larger shells there on the front, and then just using hot glue, I want to make it look like she just has a crown of shells up here. And the starfish itself is really going to cover up the pumpkin stem, but this is really going to add to the fun decor of it. So I just use a combination of seashells that I found at the beach and the seashells from this jar to completely cover the top of her hair with some seashells. And I try to make it look relatively even too. And then we'll go in and just add the starfish to the very top. It's having a hard time focusing on all those seashells, but they turned out so cute. I just glue on the starfish right here. This is a blue color that's very similar to like the blue cotton color that we used for the scales for the mermaid tail. I wanted to combine different colors of blue together on her. I think that will look really cute. And I think it just needs a few more seashells here on the back. And I just kind of keep adding to the little shell crown until it looks really pretty. So this is where we're at right now. Now we can go ahead and unwind her hair. If you then take the individual pieces of rope and unwind them, you're going to get all these different strands that really gives me the pretty mermaid hair. I think that looks really pretty. Originally, I did want to give her like a raffia hair, but I'm really glad I decided to go with rope because I really like the beach waves she has here. I think that looks really cute. I'm not going to comb it out or anything like I normally would because I don't want to interrupt the curl pattern in these. I think they look really pretty. So I just unwound each one of them by hand, and I think that really made a big difference for her hair. Isn't it so cute? If you find any of the pieces are a little longer than the one next to them, you can give her a little haircut, trim things up a little bit, but mine looked pretty good. Then I got this great fishnet. It's like a mini fishnet. I've been looking for these, and I got it on Temu. This is the blue version, and I'm going to cut out a piece that I can wrap around her waist, like where the pumpkins come together here at the bottom, kind of like almost like a little fishnet skirt here to go over the top part of her tail. So I just went ahead and cut it down a little bit skinnier. It doesn't need to be quite this big. I want to kind of drape it where it kind of looks like the fishnet is draped here on the front, but maybe skinnier over on the side like that, and then wrap that around. So I'm going to start right here by hot gluing this corner on, stretching the fishnet completely out there on the right side, and then having it be really skinny and scrunched up on the left side. And I just wrapped that around, also gluing that on the back and trimming off any excess. And I think she's looking so cute. The only thing I wanted to add was a little color to her little shell bikini top. And so I am going in with that blue cotton color and painting those carefully with a little sponge, trying to make sure I don't get any on the pumpkin below. I had thought about leaving them natural, but I really wanted them to have a little pop of color as well. And she's not going to have a face or anything like that. I wanted it just to be like a silhouette of a mermaid. I think she turned out so cool. What do you guys think about our mermaid pumpkin stack? I think she might be one of my favorite coastal fall DIYs I've ever made on my channel. I really love her, and I can't wait to display this. I ran this idea by my son over the phone at college, and he definitely approved. I think it turned out so cute. It's exactly what I was envisioning. For this DIY, I wanted to make a little coastal beach scene. I'm going to be using a bamboo cutting board from the Dollar Tree and some driftwood that I found from the beach. I'm going to use this as the base, and then I tried to pick up different kinds of driftwood at the beach. I have different lengths. I want them to be different heights, but not quite this tall. So I'm going to cut these down to size. And some of these I can actually get 2 pieces of fencing from. What I wanted to make it look like is a beach fence like made out of driftwood. I thought that'd be really cute. So cutting them actually helped too because it gave me a flat bottom on all of these so that I can attach them to the wood cutting board. I'm just going to go ahead and start hot gluing them from the left to the right. And what I did was just hot glue it to the bamboo cutting board, and then I go over it with some wire. I have some black hardware wire from the Dollar Tree, and I'm just going to wrap that together. If you've ever seen like an old beach fence, a lot of times they are driftwood and they're all wired together like this. So I thought this would give it a fun, authentic vibe to kind of tie that around each one of them, making it look like that is the structure of the fencing. And I guess it kind of is because I'm just attaching it with hot glue there to the bottom. And since I cut all the driftwood, again, I do have that flat edge. It makes it easier to glue this onto the bamboo cutting board and to make that stable. So I just go one at a time, hot gluing that together to the cutting board and then wrapping it with the black wire until I get all the way over here to the other side. I wanted this to look like a little fall by the sea display, and I have some really fun ideas using items from the Dollar Tree to decorate this. Now, the bamboo cutting boards from the Dollar Tree, this is one of the smaller ones. The original ones, I noticed they are now making them a little bit bigger. So you could do it with a larger one too. It's going to give you a little bit larger display. And a few more pieces of driftwood. As you can see, I do have them cut all different heights, which I like the variety. And I tried to mix up the color of my driftwood as well. If you wanted to do this with items from the Dollar Tree, you could always use like a plunger handle for your wood dowels. It might be a little bit thicker than this, or maybe some wood dowels. Now, I wanted to add some nautical rope to this for a fun touch, and I decided to border out the actual tray, the little bamboo cutting board here. And I thought that would look really fun and coastal and kind of make it look a little bit wider here at the bottom as well. I also want to add a little beach down here. So this will kind of give me a little bit of walls for the sand as well that we're going to be adding to this DIY. I just take the nautical rope and just glue that on the edges all the way around. And I want to add some fun fall items to this, like pumpkins, but also some coastal items as well, like shells and stuff like that, to make it look like a little beach scene. So the fence is going to be kind of like the backdrop here of it. And I think that looks pretty good. Let me show you how cute this little beach fence is, made just using driftwood. Isn't that fun? Now for the fence itself, I thought it would be fun to have a sign on it. I'm going to DIY one with some of the giant wooden craft sticks from Walmart. These are just big popsicle sticks, and the reason I'm using these is because I want to chew up the sides, but I want them to be larger. You could always combine lots of popsicle sticks together, but I thought maybe 2 of these would probably be good enough. One I think is a little too small. So using that same popsicle stick, I'm going to cut a second little board here. And again, I am just kind of zigzag cutting the end to chew it up to make it look like an old board sign. Yes, 2 of these I think is going to be perfect. I'm going to actually frame them together with the rest of this popsicle stick by just cutting another piece down and attaching the 2 little pallet board signs together with some hot glue for a very simple little sign we can hang on the fence. I painted mine a Cloudless by Apple Barrel blue color, just a thin coat of blue paint on the boards, and then went over it with my white paint pen. And I'm going to have it say Fall by the Sea. I did fall like just printing like a Ray Dunn font, and then I'm going to do like by the in cursive. I thought that would be cute to kind of mix it up. And then C I'm going to do in the printing font too. I did have to go over it again because the white paint does kind of settle into the blue paint. I really wanted that to pop against that, and I think that looks really cute. Now to make it a hanging sign, I'm just going to add a little bit of twine here to the back with a couple dots of hot glue, and I have a little sign that is functional too. I can hang it there on the fence, and it's perfect to spell out the theme of this DIY. I'm going to hang it right about here where it kind of hangs off to the side a little bit. Fall by the Sea. And then for the beach scene, I'm going to use school glue all over the bamboo cutting board. I just go ahead and squirt that out. I also like to kind of spread out the glue to really make sure everything is covered with glue here, even in between each one of the fencing, so that I could add some sand to this. I'm going to be using the tan sand from the Dollar Tree to give us our little coastal beach scene here for fall. And I also did try to make sure that it goes in between each one as well. And I don't want it to be too thick. I want to be able to glue all of this down. So I just kind of spread that out evenly. And I glued it from the bottom, but I think I can also glue it from the top. I'm going to use some of the little Elmer's spray glue. This comes in handy. I think I actually got this at CVS, but it hasn't clogged on me yet, so I'm really liking it. For the pumpkins, I'm going to use one of these. These are from the Dollar Tree Plus aisles, but I think they're so pretty. The little green pumpkin garland. Just be careful when you're taking them apart to get them off because they can break. I was able to fix this one, but I did take off a little bit of the pumpkin when I took it apart. I'm going to go ahead and pop the pumpkin stem back on it. I think the color of the light green mixed together with some of these like muted orange pumpkins from the Dollar Tree, and then maybe some of these little ivory pumpkins really has a really nice color scheme for coastal fall. I want to kind of pile these over here on the left, and I'm going to hot glue those down. Now gluing onto sand can be a little bit tricky. What I was trying to do was hot glue it and kind of work that down until the hot glue comes into contact with the wood cutting board down below, so I'm not just gluing it directly to the sand. Then I'm going to add some seashells here that I found from the beach. Yeah, excuse my hands there. I was having some health problems while I was trying to DIY this video. My hands were cramping up really bad, and I had like a high heart rate, tachycardia, where I actually had to go rest. It was crazy. It was kind of scary. Now for the starfish, I'm going to add a little blue starfish I got on Amazon. I just distressed mine with a little ivory to make it look a little bit more realistic, and added that down into the sand, kind of burying it in the sand a little bit too, off to the side. I love these fun coastal touches. I did notice that I needed a little bit more sand here in the corners. I just added that so you couldn't see any of the wood coming through. And then I'm going to finish it off here with another Dollar Tree seashell here, just gluing that to the side of the pumpkins. And I think I have everything secure where it will stay into place, but I love how this turned out. Fall by the sea. Here's a little closer look of our little driftwood fence with our fall scene. I love those colors of pumpkins together, and I think they work really well together with the seashells and the sand on this project. Isn't that fun? I love that. I love creating items like this to really set the mood for like a coastal fall. Now the next DIY, I'm going to take a foam pumpkin from the Dollar Tree, just a plain white one, and I wanted to see if I can make this into a sea turtle pumpkin. So all I did was pop off the stem. Now I wanted to see if I could give it a little bit better texture than just the foam, just because when you paint the foam on these, it often looks like you're just painting plain styrofoam. So what I did was I just took some Dollar Tree spackle and I wiped it all over the entire pumpkin to try to give it more of a rougher but a finished surface. You know, because like a real pumpkin is going to be a little bit bumpy here and there and irregular. So I was trying to go for that look with it. I don't know how well this stuck to it, and this might be a step that you could skip if you don't want to get all messy with the spackle. But I did put a thin coat all over top, bottom, and sides, trying to smooth that out. Once I got that all on there and filled in, I just went over it with my heat gun, gave it a quick dry, and then I went over it with my sanding sponge because it was a little rougher than what I would like. I do want some texture on there, but I don't want it to look really crazy, and I don't want like little pieces of this coming off when I go to paint this. My idea for this DIY is I wanted to make the pumpkin look like ocean water, and then I also want the pumpkin to be the sea turtle's shell. So we're going to kind of create this from scratch, and I really love how it turned out. First, for the pumpkin, I just flip it over, and I am using some Cloudless by Apple Barrel for my first color. I'm going to be mixing different colors of blue together like you would have in the ocean. And so I'm just using one of those little sponge brushes. I've actually started getting these on Amazon. I'll have to add these to my Amazon shop in the description of today's video because you get a lot more of them. And you know, Dollar Tree is getting a little bit more expensive on their craft supplies as well. So I am going all over this with that color first. And once I get that dry, I can flip it over. This is the top part. I am going to be replacing the pumpkin stem because the ones that come with these, that little styrofoam piece doesn't really look like a pumpkin stem. And I'm going to replace it with something a little bit better. So I have my first coat of paint on this. I'm going to do a couple of techniques on this to try to make this look like ocean water. And I was really happy with how it turned out. The next thing I did was just add more of a teal color of blue to this, mixing them together. And I am going to kind of distress here, like lengthwise here on the pumpkin, and try to provide a little bit of movement with this blue, kind of make it look like a watery effect. And I just do that from the top and the bottom. Again, trying to let some of that lighter blue show through. I found that the teal really did want to cover the light blue a lot. So what I'll do is I'll kind of go back and forth with different colors, just like you're distressing something. If you ever get it too dark, you can kind of go back in with your original color and distress it some more. And I kind of did it while it was wet. So all the blues are going to mix together as well, and there's not going to be like a big differentiation in the blues, but it's just going to kind of vary from one part of the pumpkin to the next, and it turned out really pretty. So I do that. I add a little bit more of the lighter color here just to provide a little bit more contrast since again, a lot of the color did kind of blend together. And I am liking the way that this looks. Now the acrylic paints that I'm using are more of a matte finish. So this is going to dry and look matte like this. I want it to look wet like the ocean. So for Mod Podge, I use the glossy Mod Podge. And as you can see, I put a good amount. This is on the top of the pumpkin. And I just use a sponge to blend that all over the top part. Again, I want it to be a little bit blotchy because I was hoping I would get some texture and a little bit of this drying white. Normally it dries clear, but if you use too much, you can get it to kind of dry white, which is what I want it to look like for like waves and sea foam. So when I do the bottom half of the pumpkin, I added even more of the gloss Mod Podge. And as you can see, it's like really gloppy. I am really putting this on. And I was really happy to see that when this dried, it gave me that exact like sea foam look that I was looking for. So really cool. I just helped it dry a little bit there with my heat gun. And this is what I'm talking about, like the sea foam, the ocean water. Yes, this was exactly the look I was going for. Now it's time to make it look like a sea turtle. For the structure of the sea turtle, I'm going to use one of the flexible cutting mats from the Dollar Tree. The kitchen section, those come in a 2-pack, and I designed this printable of a sea turtle head, front and back flippers, and even a tail. And I am just going to sketch that onto the flexible cutting mat. It's transparent, so I can just sit that little printable underneath of it. And I will include this printable down in the description of today's video. I put it all together on one sheet like that to make it easier to cut out. And once I have it all sketched out with a marker, I just go around and cut out all of my pieces. I was thinking like a loggerhead turtle, so they have a pretty large head and neck. It's about the same as their front flippers in size. These are the front flippers. And this is going to provide the structure. And we're going to be kind of molding these. I'm going to use Model Magic. You could also use maybe like an air dry clay. And I'm going to see what I can create with this. Now, Dollar Tree has been getting like lots of clay tools and stuff in. I was able to find like a little clay craft kit, and I'm just using some Model Magic. You can get this at Dollar Tree. It's even cheaper, I think, at Dollar General. It's $1. They didn't really have the blue color that I wanted, and I got this royal blue. I end up thinking it's too blue, and so I do paint it, so you can paint it if you're not happy with the color. But what I did was I just rolled out a very thin coat of it. It's kind of like working with Play-Doh. It's really easy to work with. And I laid 2 of my little flippers, the back flippers there on there, cutting it in half and just folding this over. Now, the structure is that flexible cutting mat inside that piece of plastic. You can kind of feel where it is. I just kind of molded this to that exact shape because you want a little bit of undulations there on the outside of the flipper. And I think that looks pretty good. I'm going to do the same thing here. And basically, I'm sandwiching that structure inside. It is going to help with the final project, make it sturdy and strong. And this Model Magic, if you haven't worked with it before, dries to like a hard foam kind of finish. I wanted mine to look like a mosaic though. You know how like sea turtle flippers and heads and stuff can have like a great design and texture on them. I thought I would get that with these little glass mosaic tile pieces from the Dollar Tree. These come in like 2 different colors of blue and a white in this kit. And as you can see, you get a lot in a package. I'm going to go ahead and just push those down into the Model Magic, creating a fun little mosaic, like you're making like a mosaic tile. And I'm only going to have to do it on the top of the flippers because that's really the only place you're going to be able to see them. Now I'm going to do the same thing here for the front flippers. I just need a little bit more of that Model Magic. And that roller actually came in handy. It definitely took me back to my childhood. That's definitely like a Play-Doh tool, right? And I am just going to cut that and fold that over and mold these pieces as well. The sea turtle flippers on the front are always larger, so that's why this one's so much bigger. And once I get these put together, I can put the mosaic tiles in these as well. One thing I did not really enjoy this color in the end. I thought it was just too blue. And so I might have been better off to paint them first before I added the mosaic tiles to it, because then when I painted them, I did have to go back and kind of clean the glass tiles off. But they're beautiful tiles. I've made some really fun mosaics with these. I've made a mosaic pumpkin with these, and they're just so pretty. This is my favorite set with these blue colors, of course. And I am just trying to stagger like color pattern, but use about the same amount of tiles on each piece if they're a symmetrical piece like that. Sea turtles do have these little tails, more like just a little triangle. And so I'm going to do that for this piece. And not all sea turtles, some sea turtles like have like a pointy shell that cover up their tail, but this one's going to be a round pumpkin, so definitely wanted to have a tail. And again, just model magic and some more of the mosaic tiles. The last piece to do is the head. It's going to be a two-sided because it's going to be sticking out, the front of the pumpkin. So I wanted to have an eye as well. I am just going to cut a hole, little opening here in the head. And I decided to use a black wood bead from the Dollar Tree. That way it'll look like an eye on both sides of the head, and that worked out really well. I need a little bit more model magic. As you can see, you're definitely going to need, I think I used, 3 packages on this. There's not a whole lot in those little packages, but for $1, that's fine. And I just put my little head stencil on there and the black bead inside, and kind of pull off any of my excess model magic and mold this as well. This kind of has a little bit of a beak, so it'll have like a little pointy end here that I designed for the sea turtle head. And then I also want the black beads to peek out. Those are going to be the perfect eye. And I'm glad I thought to use the wood beads because that was just perfect for that. And again, this is two-sided, so I'm going to have to do the mosaic tile on both sides because you're going to be able to see this from the front and the back of the pumpkin sea turtle. And again, I'm going to use the little glass mosaics on this as well. And this DIY did take me a while, but it really turned into a work of art. I really love it. Sometimes these longer projects like this, can really be rewarding. So I just loaded this up with tiles, again, trying to keep it pretty symmetrical and kind of mix up the color and the pattern. This is how our little ocean pumpkin dried. I think it's looking really cool. For this stem, I'm going to replace it with another pumpkin that I had from the Dollar Tree, one of the fabric ones. It has a really nice stem on it, and I'll just use that one instead of making my own. But next thing is try to figure out how to attach all this to the pumpkin. Since it is foam, I am just cutting the little foam out a little slot here. And this is going to be for one of the back flippers for the sea turtle. And I want a opening here large enough to be able to put that in there. And I'm not waiting for my foam to harden up. It will later. You could if you wanted to. And another thing I probably should have done was paint it before I attached it, because it would have been easier, I think, to probably paint them before I attached them. But I hadn't really decided that I needed to paint them until I kind of put it all together. And then I decided I wanted to paint the flippers as well. So I want to make sure this is kind of lined up right. This is one of the back flippers. So the tail is going to be right about here. I'm going to have both of those back flippers relatively low to the ground, and the tail, of course, and then I'll have the ones in the front a little bit higher, like it's kind of swimming upwards kind of a feel. So again, I just cut out a little slot there large enough for the tail to fit inside, add hot glue to that, and glue my model magic in there. You can also, mold the model magic a little bit to kind of make it take on the same shape there as the pumpkin and to help grip that on there. I want the other back flipper to kind of be angled the same way that I did the first one, and probably an equal distance here from the tail. They're pretty close together here on the back. I think that's going to be plenty large enough. And again, I just attached this with hot glue. And I really love those glass tiles. I think they really make the sea turtle project. These are the large flippers for the front. I'm going to have them go a little higher and have them kind of stick out here just for a little bit of difference. I don't want it all kind of sitting on the ground. And again, I just cut a slot and glue each one of these pieces right inside. I've used this model magic a lot for crafting. I've had really good luck. I've made sea monsters with it. I've made American eagles for the 4th of July. It's a really fun material to work with, and it really lets you kind of DIY something like this that you wouldn't be able to DIY with just plain supplies from the Dollar Tree. You kind of have to put it all together like this, but I think it turned out really cool, and it's a great way to use your imagination. Here is our two-sided head. It's going to be sticking out of the front of the sea turtle here, so a little bit higher, kind of like how I did the flippers in the front, and I just make a little opening here for the sea turtle neck and glue this one inside as well. I'm trying not to mess up the Model Magic too much. I want to try to make it as smooth as possible. You can always wet it a little bit if you need to try to get out any wrinkles or anything like that. The stem is brown, but it's also gold. I'm going to distress mine with a little bit of Beachcomber's beige here to kind of make it look more like a piece of like gnarly driftwood. That was what I was going for. And since I had to mold so much stuff on this pumpkin, it was kind of good to have a pre-made little pumpkin stem like this to save a little bit of time. I just painted that, attached that to my pumpkin, and this is what it looks like with the royal blue. I decided it was too much of a difference from the ocean water. I really wanted it to all look like the ocean. And so I'm going to use the same colors that I used before for the pumpkin, but this time for the flipper. So I went over it with the teal and the cloudless like mixed together, making sure to clean off any paint from my glass tiles before it has a chance to set up. And I'm just going to go ahead and do that to all the flippers, the tail, and the head. And then I can go back in and add even more color to it. I don't mind a little bit of the royal blue showing through, but I really want most of it to be the same kind of color scheme as the pumpkin itself. So again, I think this would have been a little bit easier if I would have painted them before I attached everything, but I was careful and I made sure I didn't cause any damage here to any of my clay or my Model Magic that hasn't really got a chance to set up yet. So that's what it looks like with just the teal, and now I'm going to distress it with a little bit of that Cloudless by Apple Barrel, just a very light blue, and it also gives that kind of seafoam look too with the light color. I'm just using that plain and kind of distressing all over, making sure to clean off all of my tiles so they still look glassy and clear. And I'm really glad I decided to change up the color. I just think the royal blue was not really the look I was going for. I mean, I do have that with the mosaic tiles, but I think they stand out so much more now that it looks like the ocean water like this. And here it is, our little sea turtle pumpkin. I really love how he turned out. He is exactly what I was envisioning and was a really fun DIY to put together. So don't be afraid of kind of making the sea turtle like this. Again, I will include a link to the stencil. And you saw all the steps. It just takes a little bit of time and patience and some paint. For this DIY, I picked up a carvable pumpkin. Normally, I wouldn't use the carvable pumpkins because they are more expensive. I got this one at Lowe's for like $7, but I needed it to be carvable for this DIY because the ones from Dollar Tree don't let you carve them like, with the thin walls. So I'm going in with my heated craft knife. I got this tool on Amazon. I do have this linked in my Amazon shop. I think you can find them at craft stores as well. And I am cutting right through that foam. Using the heated knife like this just made this go through it so easily to cut an opening in the front of this pumpkin. I didn't really care what color this was, but I think the white will come in handy when I go to paint this. And I want just a big opening here in the front so I can do a fun beach theme inside. A little beach scene is what I was thinking. And I just opened it up like that. But then I also went back in and tried to trim it up here and there to make the sides look kind of even. I did notice that the heat from my knife would burn it a little bit if I left it in one place too long. So I was trying to not do that. It was really hot. If you're going to work with a heated craft knife like this, just be very careful. Remember, it is extremely hot and sharp. So definitely be careful when you're crafting with one of these, but I love it. And if you take the little blade off the end, you can burn perfect holes in Dollar Tree plastic items, which I really enjoy. So I just went and carved this until I thought it looked exactly like what I wanted. Just some flat edges here. I'm going to paint the inside of it. I'm going to decorate the inside, but I'm also going to paint the outside as well. So I just wanted it to look as clean as possible. And I just kind of took one section at a time. I didn't want to cut off too much of it, but I definitely wanted it to look even if possible. And I think that looks pretty good. I think that's what I was going for, just a complete open look there to the front. Now, for some reason, they have like some numbers and letters on the inside of this. I didn't know if I could cover them up with a little bit of spackle. I tried to, but I think it's going to be fine because I'm going to decorate the inside of it as well and make it look like a little beach dune is what I was thinking. But I tried to mask those a little bit with the spackle. I was hoping that it would be completely smooth on the inside because I want to go in there and paint it. So I want it to look like the sky and the ocean in the distance. And so I just went in with some Cloudless by Apple Barrel and I just went over the inside of it. I don't necessarily need to do the bottom, but I want to do all of the other walls and also just that lip there of the pumpkin where I cut it open. I did that one blue as well. Just something really simple. I mean, I'm not going to do much more of a scene than that. And then I just wanted to make sure I didn't get any blue here on the white part of the pumpkin because I want this to look like wood. To get that look, I used just one of these chippy brushes from Amazon and some Beachcomber Beige acrylic paint. And I'm just distressing it in one direction. It's going to give me that wood grain look. I was going for maybe a driftwood color on this. And since they're already white, I don't have to go back and distress it. I just made sure that I didn't get an even coat. I do want some of the white showing through. And I just went over the entire pumpkin with that. I just wanted something very subtle to look like wood. I also used that color to start painting the pumpkin stem. There's not much of a pumpkin stem on this pumpkin, but it's enough to make it work. And then I went in with brown. I tried like a burnt umber first. I really wasn't getting the color of brown that I wanted to with that though. So I'm going to go in with some Antique Wax by Waverly and it gave me a little bit more of the richness that I was looking for in the brown color. And I kind of just mix all those colors together to make the pumpkin stem look good. Now for the beach dune that we're going to put in there, I need some foam to be able to add items to. So I just took a little piece of the floral foam from Dollar Tree and I'm just going to kind of carve it down with one of those little cricket scrapers from the Dollar Tree. I want a thinner piece like that, but I also want it to be almost angled. So it's like shorter in the front and taller in the back. That way I can add dune grass to this. I can add like a little beach fence to this, a little beach scene. I don't want you to be able to see the green foam. We are going to put sand in here, but I did go over it with that Beachcomber Beige first by Apple Barrel and just sponge that on the foams because I want to make sure you don't see anything. And then I'm also going to use that same color here on the bottom. We will be adding sand to this, but anywhere where there's not sand, this can kind of replicate that sand look there with that Beachcomber Beige shade. For the bottom of the pumpkin, and then I'm going to go in with some hot glue and glue the foam piece on here. The great thing about the carvable pumpkin is that I can use this from year to year. Here in Florida, pumpkins go bad so quickly if you try to decorate with them. So this is kind of more of a permanent pumpkin decoration. I really loved it. For the dune grass, I'm going to use some of this onion grass that I had left over from spring. I really like the tips because they're skinnier. It's going to give me more of that dune grass feel. So I try to gather that together. I don't want it to be too long. And so I just cut that down to size. I want it to be able to fit inside that pumpkin. I would say this pumpkin's not real small, but it's also not very big. So I think that will work. I do want it to be tall. And I just pushed that into the foam there towards the side. I think I definitely need more. So I just took more of that onion grass, started putting that together. And these don't have wires or anything, but that foam from the Dollar Tree is so soft that you can actually just kind of push the grass in there. And I want it to look like one big batch of the dune grass there over to the side. So I'm definitely going to need some more. Again, the skinnier parts there are my favorite. I tried to use those as much as I could when I was adding the dune grass to the side. And I just want it to look like just a natural like beach scene that you would see at the beach with like a little fence as well. So I thought that the dune grass on one side, on the other side, we could do a little fence. For the fence, I'm using the wood stems from the Dollar Tree. I was trying to find some of the skinnier pieces. You could also use like a twig from your yard and cut it down to size, or even like, like wood dowels if you needed to. You could always stain those. And I'm just using the foam and I'm going to put the pieces in here, kind of going off to the side. I thought I could fit 5, but really 4 is enough. And then I want to tie them all together with twine. So I just pushed them into the foam and then I went in there and tied the twine on here to the one in the back. For the middle pieces, I'm just going to simply wrap that around. There's no need to actually tie those on there since I've already got those inside the pumpkin. And I did that all the way to the end, and then I'm going to tie off the final one as well to give that little beach fence look. You could also use wire for that, but I think the twine looks pretty good. And then we're going to glue on some sand. I'm using the school glue from the Dollar Tree. First, I'm going to spread it out here on the foam and pour in some of the tan sand from the Dollar Tree to give me that beachy look. I want to kind of disguise the edges of the foam so it's not real noticeable. So I'm also going to be gluing sand to the side of it, like kind of behind it as well. I want to decorate it to make it look like a beach as well. I don't want it to be so deep though with the sand inside that it falls out like that. So I had to be kind of careful where I was adding it and making sure I glued it down as much as I could. For the little starfish, I'm going to add one of these little starfish I got on Amazon, a little tiny one. I'm going to glue one right here to the front corner of the foam. And then I'm also going to glue like a seashell over on this corner. So I want that to kind of blend in with the sand and not be so obvious. I also have like some larger seashells that I found from the beach, some of the tiny seashells from Amazon. And I'm going to try to put these together, just trying to lay it out and see what looks good. And I'm just gluing those to the sand. I don't want too many seashells, but I do want a variety. I want them kind of spread out. I even add like a seashell behind the fence as well because I did have sand back there. I'm going to use this cute little conch over here to the side to make it look like maybe a large conch since it's kind of a miniature scene, but adding some seashells all around the edges of the foam. And here it is, our little beach dune inside of a pumpkin DIY. I got the pumpkin at Lowe's because it is carvable. Let me know if there's a better place to get those from. That was the best deal that I could find in my area. And I even got it delivered by DoorDash, so I can't beat that. And a fun little beach dune inside, really fun. Kind of subtle, but definitely coastal. For this DIY, I'm going to use the stacking pumpkin from the Dollar Tree. They've raised the prices on these this year to $7. So this is the only one I bought this year. And I also bought a solar light. It doesn't have to be this exact one. You could also use maybe the hanging one, but I like the fact that this one was round. I am going to use this on the top of my pumpkin stack to make this look like a pumpkin lighthouse. It did have a handle on there that I didn't really need, so I just went ahead and removed the screws, so I just have a solar light. Now these pop together. Sometimes they can be a little tricky to get on. I've had that problem with the snowman from the Dollar Tree too, but I was able to get this one to pop on eventually. And so you stack the 3 pumpkins like this. They come in 2 different color schemes. These are the white ones. And I want this to look like a pumpkin lighthouse. So I wanted a spiral pattern that I'm going to paint the stripe on, which was a little tricky. It was probably trickier than doing like straight across, but I was able to make it work. And this is how I did it. I took some painter's tape and I went ahead and put them all together first so I could kind of keep the same stripe going around all of the pumpkins like at a lighthouse. And I went ahead and taped that off for one side of my stripe, and then I'm going to go ahead and tape off the other side of my stripe. So I will have a stripe like coming around, swirling around the very top pumpkin like that. It was a little tricky to get your angles right on your tape for this. I was just making sure that I had it stuck at least really good on one side of it so I could have that like little clear path there for my stripe. And I think that's going to work. I'm going to have that one stripe there go across the top pumpkin. And again, I went ahead and put this together so I could continue that stripe all the way down our little pumpkin lighthouse. So I'm going to start kind of right here on my second pumpkin, right here where I stopped. And I'm going to, again, just going to have one stripe that goes around each pumpkin. I think that's going to be the easiest way to do this. And just kind of working with the painter's tape to try to get it to take, it's not going to be perfect, but if I can get like close to the right angles on this for the stripe to kind of diagonally swirl around. And then I'm going to do the same thing here for the bottom. Just kind of pulling and tugging it to get that great shape that I'm looking for. And so it doesn't just go straight down. I want the stripe to be visible kind of from all the sides of the pumpkin lighthouse. And again, I did a top and a bottom painter's tape for each one. And then I'm going to take them apart before I paint them. I think that's going to make it easier. The only reason I went ahead and put them together like that is so I could get that consistent stripe going all the way around. So I'm just making sure my painter's tape is good and goes kind of end to end here. And I can go in and paint this. The color that I'm going to use is just Cloudless by Apple Peril. It's going to give me a fun blue stripe. But you know what? You can make your lighthouse any color that you wanted. Adding the black top to that, it would be really cute if you did black stripes. Or you could do like a more traditional orange stripe on your pumpkin lighthouse. But the shape of the pumpkin lighthouse, the pumpkin topiary, I think is perfect for a lighthouse. And I'm making this for my front porch. It's going to be nice and durable because it's going to be plastic outdoors, and the solar light can recharge for the top of the lighthouse to light it up. And that part was really easy because it's kind of already pre-made. I just went over this with a blue paint using just a makeup sponge to sponge that on. Again, really easy to paint like the white color. I really only needed one coat of blue and kind of a touch up here and there. This is the middle section of the pumpkin stack. I really wish they hadn't raised the prices of these this year. I would have bought like 4 or 5 of these. I think if they were cheaper. But for $7, I was frugal this year and only purchased one. They are really cute though, and nice and large. So again, I'm just going over this with my blue stripe. And I think this would be really cute too if you didn't want to do the like stripe that just spirals around. You could also do just horizontal stripes. It might be easier. I don't know. Maybe. You still have to go around all of the bumps there on the pumpkin as well and get your painter's tape nice and flat to try to avoid any bleeding. I really didn't have very much bleeding on this. And the great thing is it's made out of plastic, so it's really easy to wipe off any excess paint if you do get any bleeding. And I do want to add some fun details to this too. Once I get all of my stripes painted on here, I thought it would be fun to add like some windows, some doors to our lighthouse to really give it that lighthouse feel. And I love a good lighthouse DIY. They always make me smile. Okay, I think I've got everything painted on this one. This is just finishing off the final pumpkin. So let's go ahead and see how this turned out. I peeled off my painter's tape and I had a really nice spiral stripe right around here. Very cute. I'm going to touch this one up a little bit and see if you just use a baby wipe. If you have any bleeding, it's really easy to get that off. Now, I do need to get the pumpkin stem off of here just because it's in the way. The plastic's a little sturdier than you would think. I used a razor blade and I tried to heat it up with my heat gun. I do have a heated knife. I need to find all the pieces to that because that would have helped too, to help carve through this. But I kind of made my own heated knife using my heat gun and my razor blade until I cut the very top off. I just need this out of here because it's going to be in the way when I go to attach my solar light. This is the middle pumpkin of our pumpkin stack. And I went ahead and just removed all of the painter's tape on this one as well, making sure I didn't have any bleeding. Super cute. I think that looks pretty good. And again, this is the final piece. This is the $7 stacking pumpkin set from the Dollar Tree. So remember, it is nice and large. I think that looks pretty good. I think we can go ahead and start putting this together. So this is our top pumpkin that we're going to be attaching our light to. And this is the solar light from the Dollar Tree. I just put hot glue all around the bottom here. And I'm going to glue that to the pumpkin top. I love that. I think the round shape works really well for the lighthouse. And then I'm going to go ahead and put our pumpkin stacked together by popping all of the pieces of the pumpkin back together like this, and trying to line up that blue stripe that spirals all the way around our little lighthouse. Isn't that so cute so far? I love the idea of turning pumpkins into a lighthouse. Now I'm just going to kind of freehand on the windows and the door, pretty easy. What I did was I just did an arch shape here, and I drew in like a little window panel. So I just do like an arch shape, do a straight line for the bottom, a line down the middle, and then 3 lines straight across. Very simple. And then I just drew a tall arch onto the bottom pumpkin here for the door. I think that'll be a really good scale. Just using my black paint pen, and then I'm going to use like a teal color for the door, just a complementary blue color because I didn't want to have all the same color of blue here. And I just painted the door in, and then going over it again with my black paint pen to really bring out the details of the door frame. We can also like paint on a very simple like doorknob here. I'm going to do like a handle one, and then some features of the door. So I'm just going to do like little arch sections for this part since I did an arch door, and then some like rectangular areas here below, like a little panel door here, just to give a little bit of texture to that. And then for the windows themselves, I thought I would paint those teal as well. You can kind of see through the paint when I go through it with one layer, so I should be able to add all of the details back to the windows without a lot of problem. And it kind of keeps the color scheme pretty cohesive and makes it where you can't like see the stripes that I painted on the lighthouse there behind all of these little features. I just go over the windows again with my black paint pen, bringing out all of the fun details on this one. And that's really all there is to this pumpkin lighthouse DIY. I think it turned out so cute. Let me show you. It was so hard to kind of film that because it's such a large item. And here it is, our little lighthouse made out of the Dollar Tree pumpkin stack. This was so much fun. I really enjoyed how this turned out. And I think it's going to look great on my porch for fall. Let me also show you what it looks like lit up, of course. My favorite part about a good solar light DIY. And I'm really glad I added the windows and the doors to our lighthouse too, because it really added a fun, unique touch. Here it is lit up a little bit there at night. And I think it's really fun. What do you guys think about this one? For this DIY, I'm using a wood leaf sign from the Dollar Tree and one of their wood rounds. Some of the Dollar Tree wood rounds like this are thicker now, and I really love that because look, no bowing or anything like that. I'm going to add that to one of the little leaf stickers, and I'm actually going to be taking that apart. I want like lots of coastal colors on this, but lots of different textures, as many as I can work together here with a coastal theme. And so I just removed the hanger from both of my signs, and we can start make these different colors. I am going to be adding like a texture material to the wood round sign in the back, but you're going to be able to see through it. So behind it, I'm doing a coat of Cloudless by Apple Barrel all over, just a very thin coat of blue paint to stain the wood round. Very easy. Now, when you go to get one of these wood leaf signs, make sure you get one that's a little bit not glued great, because the first one I started there, I actually cut myself, and now I'm going to have a crafting injury for this video. But it was really glued on there really tightly, but luckily I had a second sign here, and I was able to get this one off. This one wasn't glued near as tight, but again, I'm trying to be really careful because I don't want to damage this leaf, but I do want them to be separated because I want to use burlap for the back of the leaf, and there's really no good way to get that on there unless I have the pieces separated. So look for one that's not glued great like this one, and use a little heat to separate. For this top leaf, I'm going to make that the same Cloudless by Apple Barrel color, very beachy and blue. And that's going to be really easy to do. Now, the other layers are going to be all different textures. So I'm going to use one of the faux burlap bags from the Dollar Tree. It is barely large enough to cover the wood leaf, but I think we can make it work. I love crafting with this. I use these all the time. And so I have like a partial bag here left over from another DIY. And I'm just going to simply sit this leaf here on the back of that faux burlap and use an ink pen to draw out this intricate leaf design. And then I can cut out the burlap to add to the front really easily. I don't have to worry about any fraying or anything like that. If it were real burlap, and it is so easy to work with, definitely one of my favorite crafting materials from the Dollar Tree. It does have like a lot of different shapes here on this leaf, so I just kind of take my time and cut this all down to size. And what I want to do is I want to have like a doily in this fall DIY as well. That's not very coastal, but I think it's going to be another fun texture and color to go with the sign. And I think it made it look really sweet. I know a lot of people do like doily pumpkins and stuff like that for fall, but I wanted to see if I could incorporate like a doily into like a fall leaf DIY. So that is what we're going to do. This is going to go on here. I'm going to flip it over so I can add it to like the non-damaged part of the sign. And I just attach that with a nice thick coat of Mod Podge on here because I'm going to be gluing that plastic backing from the faux burlap bag to that and just smoothing that out. Very easy to craft with. And I just kind of make sure there's no air bubbles inside. The blue leaf is going to go on top of it. And I just reattach that with hot glue right here, kind of going in the same exact direction. Very easy, and that looks so pretty. Now for the doily. This is a doily from the Dollar Tree. These come in a 2-pack. I noticed that they come in a different color. This is like almost an ivory. I have ivory ones. I have white ones. And they're pretty close in color, but I kind of prefer the ivory one if I can find it. And I just had to cut off the tag here, and it's almost perfect for the wood round size. There's a few pieces that kind of overlap, but I'm just going to trim them up in the end because I do want to frame out this sign as well. To attach the doily, I just went all over the wood round with a like medium coat of Mod Podge here, where I can lay that fabric down right on top and see how that blue shines through. So sweet. I really love that look. It's really sweet for fall. Once I got that on there, I just kind of blotted that with a paper towel to smooth that out, and then we'll add the leaf design on the front of it. But I didn't really like how some of the areas, overlapped here, and I do want to frame this out in the end, and so I just trim off any excess doily that might be hanging over the edge of the wood round. I'm also going to take this chance to add the hanger back on. I just feed the twine through the back, and while the doily is still kind of wet here with the glue, I can kind of cut it if I need to get the twine to go through. And I just knot that hanger here in the front. I usually always knot on the front of my Dollar Tree signs. I just find that the thinner signs hang better against the wall. They hang flatter if you do it that way. And then here is our beautiful burlap and blue leaf sign. I want it to be a little off to the side, and then I thought I could add just a seashell from my collection from the beach there to the front for a fun coastal touch. I just add hot glue all over the back of this leaf sign. And then I'm going to glue a seashell right here in the front. This is a glossy shell that I got in Sanibel. Really cute. I'm going to do it kind of upside down like this and just attach that with hot glue here. The final step is I wanted to frame it out, and I wanted to use a material that will look good with the burlap, so I'm using the brown rope from the Dollar Tree. This is the thicker of the 2 brown ropes they have at the Dollar Tree. This one was in pretty rough shape, so I did have to use my lighter and kind of burn off any fuzzies on this to clean this up a little bit because it was very stringy, and also trim up some of the big fibers as well before I border this out. I'm going to start right here at the bottom and just use hot glue to glue this all the way around. I love like a rope frame on a wood round sign like this from the Dollar Tree. It finishes the project, makes it look framed, but it also makes it look thicker and a little bit better. Now I'm working on a silicone mat so I can really add the hot glue to the sides and not worry about this sticking to the bottom. But I just wanted to glue this on all the way around. And starting and stopping this, the seam is pretty easy to do here with the rope. And I just have the seam be right there on the bottom. And then just pull this off the silicone mat. And we have a fun little coastal leaf sign. I think it is so pretty. It was really pretty easy to put together. But look at all those beautiful textures. You have the rope, you have the doily, you have the burlap, the seashell, and all the fun blue colors as well. So a little bit subtle for coastal, definitely coastal colors, but I really love how this one turned out. I think it's so pretty. I love crafting with the doilies like that. For this DIY, I'm going to make a lobster trap. Now, I'm going to use the little mini pallets from the Dollar Tree, and I'm going to use these bamboo sticks that I get on Amazon, but you could always use those popsicle sticks there from the Dollar Tree. They weren't long enough for what I wanted to make here for this lobster trap. I want to put two of these together. So I just hot glue the two pieces here. This is going to be the bottom of my lobster trap, and I'm going to use the little bamboo pieces for everything else. I bought a big package of these on Amazon a while ago, years ago actually, and I've been using them ever since. And I actually used the rest of them for this project, so I will have to replenish these. I'm going to first make the little doors here for the side of my lobster trap. So what I decided to do was to make each piece a little bit smaller so I could get maybe that arch shape that it should be for the side of a lobster trap. And then we're going to fill it up with pumpkins for fall. So I think that's a really fun idea. I started out here making each one just very slightly smaller than the next one. Then I realized I probably should make them a little bit more because it was taking a little too long to get to the very top here. So I started cutting them shorter, and I'll maybe remove some of those pieces if needed when I go to put this all together. I was just marking them with my pencil and using my miter scissors that I also got on Amazon to cut these down. They work really well. And I am just going to try to spread this out. I do want like that arch shape. I didn't really want to cut any like miter cuts on the wood. I wanted to try to keep this as easy as possible. So I just did them in different lengths. And then I'm going to need the piece to go from the top to the bottom to kind of attach everything together. So I just cut another one of these pieces down. And again, these are just bamboo. I think the link I used to order with these before is not available anymore, but I'm almost positive they have some available. I've seen them on Amazon a lot. Now, what I'm going to do is create a second one of these like side doors for the other side of our lobster trap. So just using the first one for reference to cut these down, I just kind of sketch them out with a pencil, how long they need to be, and then I can go in with that one piece and cut them all down to size, making sure to keep them in order because they definitely get smaller towards the top. And then I need another support piece the same size. So I'm just going to use the first one as reference, try to lay these out. It's not a perfect arch, but it's pretty close to it. I think it's going to work for this. And glued that on. Now I need to find a way to attach these to the side. I really want it to kind of sit on top. So I'm going to use another piece of bamboo just to make a little support piece to help glue that on. First, I'm just going to glue it to the top here on the edge. We're going to line up perfectly like that. Then I'm going to go in and glue that little brace piece on. It'll also be decorative, but it's really important to keep that on there to give that a little bit of stability. And I'm going to go on here the other side of our lobster trap and do the same thing. I have created a giant lobster trap on my channel before, which I made a lobster trap tier tray using some of the signs from the Dollar Tree that are arched and the Dollar Tree wood rulers. It turned out really fun. You'll have to check that out if you haven't seen that one. And then I'm going to cut the bamboo pieces down for the top. This is the part that the popsicle sticks were not long enough for, which is one reason why I wanted to use the bamboo, but I really like the look of it too. And I am just gluing that on from end to end. So just cutting a few pieces out here for the top that are all going to be the same length. I'm going to have a little bit of gap in between the two pieces. And then the one here at the end, I kind of glue it on at an angle like that. I wanted that arched look as it went over the side. And so I'm going to do the same thing here on the other side. I'm trying to get that intricate arch angle here. And so I'm going to just glue these pieces on. So I did a total of 5, 3 flat, 2 kind of at an angle like that. And then I'm going to actually attach the rest with twine. I really wanted that arch shape. And I thought if I just glue them directly to the side doors like that, that it wasn't going to give me the shape I wanted. So I just hot glued a piece of twine here to the top. And then I'm going to cut the pieces out here for the front and have them hang by the twine. And I got the look I was looking for. So I need to go ahead and glue twine here to the other side as well. Just glued it right on top of those. And then I'm going to kind of suspend these on here. So I just put a little hot glue on each side, put that underneath the twine like that, and it's going to give me that arch shape I was looking for. I don't want to go all the way down here in the front because I want you to be able to see all of the pumpkins and fun fall decor I add in there. So I'm only going to cover part of it. I'm going to let you see inside the little lobster trap. So I think that that is far enough for that one. I'm going to cut out a few more pieces here for the bottom. I do want to have a little bit of that look down there as well. I just cut off the excess twine though, and I'm going to glue these pieces directly to the sides. This one I kind of glued to the bottom as well. And I think just a couple of rows down here will be enough. It's going to give me like some walls to be able to keep everything inside, but it's also going to give me a little bit of structure as well. And then I do want like a little cross piece to go here in the middle. So I'm going to cut another piece of the bamboo, and I'm going to kind of glue that on the inside of those two that I just attached, and also attach it to the bottom one here that I have that's kind of swinging at this point, and glue that like that. That way I have a little bit of opening. I can do some fun decorative stuff like with netting and stuff, at least on one side, because I still want you to be able to see in it. And then I'm going to go around here on the back and do the same thing. So I just cut the same support piece. I'm going to go ahead and add that now. And I glued that right across from the first one. And I felt like it needed a little bit more support. So I just cut another little piece here to brace that on the bottom. And now we can attach the pieces here. I went ahead and cut these down the same size as the other ones. And I still have that piece of twine. I'm going to glue them on just like I did on the other side, kind of suspending them like this so I can get that great arch feel that you see in a lobster trap. For vacation this summer, we went to Canada, but we also went to New England. So we got to see lots of lobster traps and enjoy some great seafood, especially in Bar Harbor. It was so beautiful up there. And I'm just going to continue that all the way down on this side because you don't need to be able to see in the back of the lobster trap, and I want it to look like a complete trap back here. So I just glued that all the way down here to the bottom. And we have got the shape of the lobster trap. I'm loving it so far. I did think I needed one more piece here at the bottom. And so I just glued that on to all of the braces we had there to finish that out. I didn't want a gap there in the back. And this is the shape of the lobster trap we have, with like the little doors and openings. Now, lobster traps a lot of times have netting on them. So I got some of this mini netting from Temu. You could really use like market bags, whatever you can find. I've even used like the rug liner from Dollar Tree, the soap holders from Dollar Tree. They have so many different things that you might be able to use for fishing net. You want something that's going to be a little bit more to the scale of your project if you're working like with a miniature item like this. And that netting that they sell at the Dollar Tree is way too big, usually for everything I try to craft. And so I just glued that on the inside there of our bamboo piece. And then I'm going to glue it here to the side of this door over here and glue the different pieces all on the inside, making it look like this area is covered with netting. I'm not going to do like the hole or anything on that for the trap. I just wanted a little bit of fish netting for that appearance. I think that's going to look really cute. And then I'm going to leave the other side open like that. So we have all the structure of this complete. I'm not going to stain it or anything. I'm just going to leave it that great bamboo color. I think that's going to be fine. It can look like a new lobster trap, I guess. I did find it did not want to hang real even since I used that netting and I pulled it pretty taut. So for the other side, I just continued the twine all the way down there to the bottom so that everything would hang level there on the front. But that is the structure of our lobster trap. I think it's so cute. I'm going to fill it up with a little bit of Spanish moss from Walmart here on the bottom. And I wanted to fill this up with pumpkins. Dollar General has a great pumpkin filler with these colors, the green, the ivory, the orange. I'm going to use more green and white, but I'm also going to use some of the orange as well. But I thought these would be really pretty for coastal colors. And I love the fact that they're loose like this, like a filler. You don't have to take anything off the bottom, like some of the Dollar Tree pumpkins. I had 1.5 packages. And again, I'm going to do more of the green and white, but definitely incorporating some of the orange in there as well, filling this up with pumpkins for fall. I think that looks really cute. The final touch is I want to add a lobster since it's a lobster trap, right? I went to the toy aisle at Dollar Tree and I found some sea creatures, and they had a little orange lobster in there, which is perfect because it goes with the fall theme. So I'm going to put that right there at the opening there near the pumpkins. And we have a little lobster trap fall display full of pumpkins. I will try to find a link for some available bamboo if you want to recreate this with some bamboo from Amazon. I'll try to make sure to add that to my shop as well, because I did know the last time I checked it that this actual bamboo was not available, but I definitely need some more too, so I'll have to do some shopping on Amazon for that for sure. For the next DIY, I picked up one of these new pillar candle holders from the Dollar Tree. They have these in 2 different sizes. This is the $3 one, which is the smaller one, but as you can see, it's really big too for a Dollar Tree candle holder. I'm going to combine that with a little jarred candle that I got in like a bluish color for coastal. And then I thought we could do some like blue leaves from one of these greenery picks from the Dollar Tree. I really want the light blue leaves, not the navy ones off these. So I'm going to kind of pick and choose. And I thought I could do like 3 of the blue-green leaves and like 2 of the little white pumpkins on this pick to decorate the candle holder. I love the candle holder, so I don't want anything too permanent. I wanted something that I can maybe attach with a couple dots of hot glue in case I do want to reuse this candle holder for something else. And of course, 2 of the pumpkins. I think that's going to be a really fun coastal decor. To make the candle a little bit more coastal, I'm going to use some of the glass stickers from the Dollar Tree. I had some of these sea creatures. The colors work perfect for this. I think I'm just going to peel and stick the sea turtle one here to the front of the glass jar candle. And the coastal colors are perfect with that candle, and it can fit here on the very top of the candle holder. Now, to attach this, I like to work with odd numbers like this, the 3 leaves. I think that's going to look pretty good. I'm going to glue them to each other so I have less things to glue again to the candle holder. And I can kind of glue those together as a group. It'll make it a little bit easier and less damaging. But I just want it kind of cascading down here on the very bottom of the candle holder. So I'm going to attach it with some hot glue here at the top. And then I want to attach these 2 like ivory pumpkins. They're just the right scale and they really match the ivory candle holder as well. I've picked up a bunch of these candle holders. I've also gotten them in black. I think they're going to be so cute to work with for Halloween. And I glued the top and the bottom of the leaves on, and now I'm also going to glue the pumpkins, and I'm just gluing those to the leaves themselves. I put them kind of next to each other where I can glue them to the leaves, but I can also glue them to each other so they will stay right there together. This DIY was so easy. It looks so coastal and cute for fall with our blue colors, our little sea turtle on there, but we've also got the pumpkin and the fall leaves as well. Definitely some of my favorite leaves from the Dollar Tree is the blue variety. And again, you can always paint those leaves if you needed to, if you wanted to change up the color scheme on yours. But I think these are really pretty and just a subtle touch of coastal. For this DIY, I'm going to take a pumpkin from the Dollar Tree. I chose a tall one because I wanted it to be a little bit longer, and just a wood plaque from the Dollar Tree. I want to turn it on its side like this and make it into a pumpkin sailboat. So what I want to do is cut off like maybe a third of it. I just use a razor blade to go around and cut the outer edge of this. It is made out of foam, so I was able to put just kind of a straight edge in there and cut that off. Now, I do want it to look like a pumpkin that's been kind of gutted out. It has all of this foam in there, so I do need to dig that out a little bit. I just use my razor blade to kind of go around and cut the foam and kind of try to scoop it out to hollow it out. Now, I know it doesn't look like the inside of a pumpkin, but I thought once I get this hollowed out a little bit, I could just paint that and make it look like the inside of a pumpkin. I'm not going to be doing any blue on this DIY, but you totally could if you wanted to. I like the orange pumpkin itself, so I think it's going to make a great little vessel here for our little coastal fall sailboat. Now, again, the styrofoam does make a mess, so be prepared for that when you are scooping that out of the inside of your pumpkin. I mixed a couple colors together. I mixed like a pumpkin orange with that beachcomber's beige to give me a color that reminded me of the inside of a pumpkin. And I just use a sponge to go in here and paint this. I want to add some fun coastal items inside the sailboat as well. And of course, we're going to have a sail and everything and try to make this look like a boat. And the wood plaque I want to use for the bottom to give it a stable base. And we're going to be using driftwood for the mast of the sailboat. So once I got that painted, I do want to kind of make this look like a beachy shore. The first thing I did was just paint the wood plaque with some beachcombers beige here, just to give it that sandy look. And I also want to add some sand to it as well, just for fun. So I think that looks pretty good. I just want kind of a light coat of paint all over this one. And then I went over the whole thing with some Mod Podge. You could also use some school glue. I have the worst time with Mod Podge. I think I squeeze it like I'm squeezing out paint consistency when it's way thinner. I always do that. Now for sand, I'm just going to use some tan sand and sprinkle that all over to make this look like a boat that is washed ashore on the beach. I don't want too thick of a coat, especially right here in the middle. So I did kind of wipe that part off because that is where we're going to be attaching our little pumpkin boat. I add some hot glue here and just lay our little pumpkin here. I left the pumpkin stem on there because I think it will actually look like part of the boat as well here from the side. And the longer the pumpkin, the better, I think, for that. This is my piece of driftwood. I think it's a little too long, so I did take it to my saw and cut it down a little bit. And I'm going to add it right here to my foam pumpkin. I left my pumpkin thick enough that there is enough like volume there of the styrofoam to be able to hold this in place. And then I also added hot glue to my driftwood here for the mast of our sailboat. This is going to be a really easy sailboat DIY, and it just turned out so cute. I have some of these little burlap pennant banners from the Dollar Tree that are kind of the perfect shape. I wanted a burlap sail, and so you really can't beat that. It's already kind of stiffened a little bit. You could also use like the faux burlap bags from the Dollar Tree to get a pretty similar effect for the sail. Now for the inside of the boat, I'm going to go ahead and fill that up with a little bit of Spanish moss. I've been having trouble finding that at my Dollar Tree, so I've been having to get that at Walmart lately. But that looks really coastal, and I think it helps add a little bit of decor there and a bed to fill with some coastal items. I'm going to add some seashells. Some of these are from the Dollar Tree. Some of these I found at the beach. I'm going to add a little starfish that I got from Amazon. I think that will be really cute for our boat. And the sail, again, is kind of pre-made. I don't really have to do anything to it. It's a perfect size and shape. Now, I did find that I wanted it to be two different sails. I don't want to just attach it to the back of the driftwood. So I went ahead and cut it in half, and then you want one of your sails to be a little bit smaller than your other one for that classic sailboat look. I also decided to arch the inside edges here just so you could tell that the sail was not attached to the driftwood there in the middle, and it gives it just a little bit of movement in our sail. And I think that's going to work perfectly. I'm not going to string it or use any hooks or anything like that. We're going for an easy DIY, so I just add a little hot glue to both corners of our little burlap sail and glue that there to the side of the driftwood. We're going to do the same thing here for our second sail, just like that. And I really love how this little pumpkin sailboat is coming together. So whimsical and fun. Now I'm going to add maybe one more seashell here. And then I'm going to go ahead and make a little flag for the top of our sailboat. I have some great fall fabric in like an orange plaid. I thought that would be cute for a little fall flag here for the top. I just go ahead and put like a triangular shape hot glue on there to glue the fabric back to back like this. Once it sets up, I can just cut this down into a very simple little pennant banner there flag that I can put on my sailboat. Really easy. I'm just going to add it to the very top of the driftwood mast here, kind of going off to the side just like that. That looks really cute. I also wanted to add some fall leaves just to really bring out the fall factor on this. So I'm going to use some of the fall leaves from the Dollar Tree in different colors. I'm going to use a yellow, an orange, and red one. And I end up using a green one too. I think those colors look really well. And I always love decorating with odd numbers of things. And I think it all looks great, except for the white starfish from Amazon. I thought it needed to look a little bit more realistic since I'm using real shells. So I just went over mine with a little bit of ivory paint to distress it a little bit. And now I love it. Here it is, our little coastal sailboat. Look at this. This is so much fun. It's a little sailboat. And then when you get to the bottom of the DIY, the sailboat is actually a pumpkin. So I tried to get really creative on my pumpkin DIYs today. And I think I came up with some really fun ideas. Isn't that so cute? Our little pumpkin sailboat. For this DIY, I'm going to take a pumpkin from the Dollar Tree and a Dollar Tree sign, and I thought we can make a pumpkin sandcastle. I want to turn that little pumpkin into a sandcastle, complete with turrets and all. So what I did first was I just removed the stem from it. This is one of the pumpkins that has like the orange on there already. It's not one of the plain foam ones, so it's a little bit prettier to start with. And we are going to make little turrets here. So I took a plastic cutting mat. This is just from the kitchen section at the Dollar Tree. And I traced out like a rectangle and like the decorative top that you usually see on those on a castle. And I'm going to cut 4 of those out to kind of give this the castle shape. You could also use like a plastic cup and cut the shape in the top of it if you had something tiny enough and flexible enough. I went ahead and made a slight overlap on those so that I could put that together. It only has 3 of the pieces on there, but I think that will work. But I'm going to need a total of 4 of these. So I just made sure my strip of the plastic cutting mat was all about the same width. And then I just used the first one as reference to be able to cut these out. And I don't have a template or anything for this. It was really easy to do. You can see I just have the little square sections sticking out at the top to make this look decorative. You could really do this on any size pumpkin. I chose this one because it's a little flatter. I think it's going to have more of the shape of a house than some of the taller pumpkins from the Dollar Tree. And so I just cut out 4 of these. I used the flexible cutting mat because I thought that would be something durable. I can cover it with paint and sand. And I first went over it with some paint. This is the Beachcomber's Beige, I believe it's called, and it has the color of sand. So I wanted everything to be the color of sand before I add sand to it, just because I don't want any of like the pumpkin showing through or anything like that. So I painted everything with that color, including the pumpkin. I kind of wish that I hadn't painted the turrets first because it did make them a little bit harder to put together to glue when I pull them around, and I wanted like a little tab to be able to glue them together. The paint didn't want to stick with the hot glue as well as I think it would have worked if I would have just left those and painted them later. So keep that in mind if you're going to paint yours. But I just painted the pumpkin that color, and I flipped these over and painted these as well. I did use a black Sharpie on these to kind of trace those out. So I was trying to mask that a little bit too there with the paint. But I painted everything that Beachcomber beige. And then I am also going to paint the top of the pumpkin too, now that it is dry. This color actually worked pretty well to hide that bright orange color. And again, we are going to cover this with sand because I really wanted to look authentic, like a sandcastle. But again, I didn't want any of that orange to shine through for sure. So this color is perfect. This is an apple barrel shade, and I think it is great for coastal crafting because it's just the perfect color of sand, but it also works really good on like faux driftwood projects. Now that I have everything painted and dried, I can go in and start cutting out little holes here in the top of the pumpkin to attach the turrets. I don't want them to be too large, so I need to kind of see how big I need. And I cut them with a razor blade, and then I went in there with just like a screwdriver to kind of hollow that out a little bit, creating a little opening for it. And then I go straight across to the other side, so it'll be kind of symmetrical. I want one in all 4 corners of my sandcastle, even though a pumpkin doesn't really have corners. We're going to give it 4 corners here. And so I just cut them all out the same way with a razor blade, and then just going in there with a screwdriver to kind of empty that out a little bit. I don't want it to be super deep in here, but I do want it to be where I can put those down in there so the turret's not just sitting on the top of the pumpkin. So now it's time to put these together. I did like kind of design them so there would be a little flap here to overlap to be able to fold those and hot glue those into a circular little fashion here. And I glued that and tried that out. I think it's a little too tall, so I am going to trim them down a tiny bit so they don't stick up too high for our sandcastle. I just added that to the pumpkin and hot glued that in place. And I'm going to do the same thing for the other ones, but first I'm going to go ahead and make them all a little bit shorter like I shortened the first one. And again, I just hot glued them, and I really wish that I hadn't painted them first because I did have a little bit of trouble getting those to stay put, but I'm going to hot glue them all in place. I tried to keep the little tops kind of symmetrical there, so when you're looking at them, they all have kind of the same pattern, and I did that with all 4 of them. And you can get really creative with your sandcastle. You can give it as many fun details as you want. I really wanted the pumpkin part of it to just be sand, and that is going to give us the fall influence because it's shaped like a pumpkin. But I want the rest of this DIY to be really coastal. So I cut them all down, glued them together. I do have a little bit of gap here where I cut the holes are not perfect for the turret. So I just went around with some spackle from the Dollar Tree and filled up any problematic areas so that when I go to add sand to this, everything kind of has a solid surface and we're not going to have just like sand like stuck inside the pumpkin there. So that was pretty easy just to touch that part up, and any areas of imperfection there on the top as well. I'm not going to bother going back and painting it again. The color is still pretty good. I just wanted a little bit more solid texture and everything to be closed in a little bit. Now it's time for the sand. School glue works perfect for this, and you can get this back to school sales for like $1. I love crafting with sand with school glue. I just started here on the top and I poured a layer of school glue all over. I'm just sponging that on. You could also use a paintbrush to kind of spread that out. And I also want to go ahead and put glue on the sides as well, because once you start sprinkling the sand on here, it's going to kind of go everywhere. So I went ahead and added glue here everywhere where I'm going to want some sand, including I'm also going to glue sand down inside the turrets as well. Then I just go over it with the Dollar Tree sand. I prefer the tan, but the white would work as well if that's all you can find. And I sprinkle that on there. I put a paintbrush in there just to give me kind of a little skewer there where the pumpkin stem is going to go, so I could get a hold of this, so I could actually turn it on its side like this and sprinkle some of that sand all over. I have done sand pumpkins before, but I've never made one into a sandcastle, so I thought this was really fun. I also went ahead and did the bottom because you might be able to see those at least from the sides. And so I just sprinkle more sand all over, really trying to get even coat all over. I don't want any areas where you don't see any sand. So then once I get it on there, I just went around with a little bit more school glue and just added sand to anywhere where I thought there might be like a little bit of a bald patch. On the turrets as well, I want those to be covered with sand. And so I kind of just work my way around it one section at a time. I do want sand to be inside the turrets too, so I added school glue into each one and added sand to each one of those. And this is how it turned out. I'm going to kind of dump off any excess sand on this. I want everything to be glued down to this if possible. And then this is going to be the base. You could really use anything. I like this because it doesn't have like an edge on it, this little board sign from the Dollar Tree. And I'm just going to fill in the hanger holes there with a little bit of spackle to give me a solid surface. But we're going to make that look like the beach as well. But first I wanted to glue my little sandcastle pumpkin on there. So I added some hot glue to the middle and glued that down. I didn't put any sand on the very bottom of the pumpkin, so that should glue down well. And then I'm going around the entire wood circle with more school glue. I'm going to spread that out all over to do a beachy scene. At first, I was going to leave it just wood planks like that to kind of give you that boardwalk feel, but I thought it made more sense for a sandcastle to be in the sand. So I went ahead and glued sand all over the sign as well, trying to make sure that I have really good coverage there and everything is going to stay put. I did go over it with some of the Elmer's spray adhesive. I used to be able to find the spray glue at Dollar Tree, but I cannot find that there anymore. I actually got that at a pharmacy. It's pretty easy to find, but it also helps to glue when you can spray the glue on there. It helps keep everything in place, but you don't have to use that. Then for the pumpkin stem that came with it, it was like very gold and ornate. I want it to look more natural. I don't want this part to be sand, but I am going over it with the Beachcombers beige first. And then I can add some browns to this to give it kind of the wood look. I'm going to use some Antique Wax by Waverly combined with that Beachcombers beige here to distress this. I want this to look like a gnarly piece of driftwood, something that you would find on the beach that you could use for a pumpkin stem for your sandcastle. So I just went back and forth with those colors, kind of distressing this until it had that look that I was going for. Did want a little bit more of the dark brown, and a lot of it tried to blend together. So I just kind of went back and forth with the colors, distressing that, but I really wanted to mask that metallic gold that was on there before because that would not go with it at all. The next step is I'm going to frame this out with some rope. I had some scrap rope from the Dollar Tree, and I'm just going to hot glue that around all the sides. It's going to give another fun coastal touch. It's also really going to kind of make everything look a little bit cleaner here at the end, having everything framed out, and hopefully keep all of the sand in the project. And the brown rope from the Dollar Tree is really easy to blend together when you come to the end here. I just used hot glue and cut that down to size. I go over it with my lighter to try to clean it up and burn off any fuzzies from the rope. And then I want to decorate the beach around my sandcastle. The first thing I did was just add the pumpkin stem in here, trying to get that in the center of the pumpkin. And then I'm going to add seashells. I have a combination of seashells that I found from the beach. The little starfish you see there, I get those on Amazon, and the jar of tiny seashells, I get those on Amazon as well. I'm going to use one of the larger starfish in that package. I'm making sure to hot glue everything down to the board underneath of it. I don't want to just glue to the sand. And since I did a rather thin coat of sand, it was pretty easy to kind of push these down through the sand, hot gluing that to the base. And I want a combination of all different colors of seashells. So I was going through my stash that I've got from the beach recently, and I am just gluing those all the way around. I just kind of want to decorate it instead of having like a moat or something around my sandcastle, which I did consider. I'm just going to decorate it with seashells. Since it's relatively a small sandcastle, I'm not going to do any doors or anything like that. I think too much detail might happen if I did that. And so I am just going to leave the turrets on there. I think that's super sweet. So here are all the seashells attached and our little sandcastle pumpkin. I think it's really charming. It was a lot of fun to make. And it looks like something that we would try to create on the beach. Whenever we go to the beach on holidays, everybody like always makes seasonal things like pumpkins. We get snowmen in the winter. It's always really fun to see what everybody comes up with at their day on the beach. For this DIY, I'm going to take a pumpkin sign from the Dollar Tree and make it into a little coastal scarecrow. I thought this would be a perfect scarecrow head for a sign. So I am going to take this and cover it in materials from the Dollar Tree to make it look like a scarecrow. For the face, I thought burlap would be perfect. So I picked up a roll of burlap from the Dollar Tree, and I'm going to give it a quick iron because as you can see, it's quite wrinkled. I want to do the face with this, so I'm going to want that to be a little bit better pressed. Yeah, I think that's going to work way better. So what I'm going to do is cover the pumpkin like this for his face. I went ahead and sketched out with like my chalk pencil from the Dollar Tree, a little bit bigger than I need of the burlap, so I can cut this down to size. I did bigger because I want to stuff the pumpkin a little bit for the scarecrow face, and so I might need a little bit excess material. Now for the little scarecrow face, I'm actually just going to freehand it on. I'm going to do some really easy teardrop shaped eyes by just painting those onto the burlap with my black paint pen. I do a little round eye spot up here in the corner and a little bit of the white of the eyes here at the bottom. We can do like 3 little eyelashes coming off to the side. Really simple eyes and big black eyes here. So I'm just going to paint the rest of that in black. I'm also going to add some details with my white paint pen to this to really make it pop, like the little white part of the eye here, the little white eye shine. I paint that in, and then the white of the eye as well. And I just add a couple of coats of those till it is nice and vibrant. I love these eyes. I think they're really cute and they're really easy to do. Now for the nose, you want just a triangle shape. I tried around my edges a little bit and just fill that in, a little orange triangle for the nose. And then I'm going to outline that with the black paint pen, making it look like it has stitches coming out from all directions. For the mouth, I just do a squiggly line for a scarecrow mouth and then do stitches here all the way across with my black paint pen. Scarecrow face is actually really easy to do and it can turn out really cute like this would. Now I'm going to go ahead and start attaching my burlap to my pumpkin sign. And then I can go back and cut it down to like the perfect size. So I just go all the way around here with my hot glue, but not completely shutting this off. I do want to leave an opening again so that I can stuff this a little bit. I'm going to take some polyfill from the Dollar Tree here. You could always use the pillow, like pillow fluff from an old pillow. And I'm just going to lightly stuff this just so it has kind of a 3D feel to it. Doesn't have to be a lot though. I just tried to evenly disperse that all over my little scarecrow face. Once I get it full, I just use hot glue here to finish this off and to completely close up that pocket. The hot glue is also going to seal the burlap there along the edges of the pumpkin sign. And I go ahead with some sharp scissors and cut as close to the wood sign as I can, the excess burlap. And I don't really have to worry about the pumpkin stem on this because we're going to be giving our little coastal scarecrow a fun beachy hat. So that is what it looks like so far. I decided to border out the edges with some Dollar Tree rope. You don't have to do this, but I thought it would be a fun detail. So I'm just using the thinner brown rope from the Dollar Tree. And I'm going to start up here under his hat and just kind of frame that out by gluing that there to the very edges of the pumpkin sign. It's also going to really help seal in the edges of the burlap so they shouldn't fray or anything like that. And just trying to keep that same shape there of the pumpkin by kind of going up there in the grooves there on the bottom. Again, just hot gluing this all the way around. And I'm glad I added that detail. I think it looks really cute like that. Now for the hat, I'm going to use the little purses from the Dollar Tree. And what I wanted to do was try to make like a straw hat, which would make sense for a scarecrow, but I want to make it look like a little coastal hat. So I thought maybe like a bucket hat kind of vibe for this guy. I am just cutting off the excess material here at the end. I also cut off the straps. I cut off that part because I don't really need it and also had a flower and stuff attached to it. And this can be the top of our hat for our little scarecrow. I'm going to attach it with hot glue there to the back of the pumpkin stem and to the front. I didn't really need to stuff this. It kind of keeps its shape on its own. And I think that will work out pretty well. For the hair of the scarecrow, I'm going to use some Dollar Tree raffia. You could also use like grass skirts from the Dollar Tree if you have some of those. I'm just going to cut off like a little bundle here for its hair like that. I think that's going to be about the perfect length. And I'm doing it now before I attach the brim of the hat, so I can kind of hide this where I glue it all on here to the side of the hat here. I just glued my little bundle there to the top, kind of pulling that down on the side there. So our little scarecrow has some fun straw hair. And I'm going to do the same thing here for the other side, just creating another bundle about the same length. And just using a bunch of hot glue over here on the side to try to glue down these all at once. They're a little wild, kind of going different directions, but anytime you're working with raffia, you're really going to have that. I just tried to kind of straighten it out the best that I can here, so it's not too crazy and wild here on the side of my little scarecrow. I think that works for the hair. And then I couldn't find any of the straw hats from the Dollar Tree, so I'm going to try to do the brim of that with another one of these little straw purses from the Dollar Tree. It was a little bit trickier. I just cut off the handles and the very top part of this one as well. And what I want to do is make like one long panel. So I'm going to cut this strip like this and then cut one end so I have a long sheet like that. It is kind of bent here from the side of the purse. I tried to get the wrinkle out of it the best I could with a little bit of heat. That did help. And I want it to be like the brim of his little bucket hat here for the beach. I'm going to attach it with hot glue right about here, where the two parts of the hat come together. And then I'm going to trim off my excess material here, just leaving the brim of the hat. And then I'm going to wrap that around the back to try to create the brim of the hat like that. I do a couple things to it to try to make it look a little bit more 3D. And I pull it around like that. That covers up the side of the hair, the raffia hair that we added. And I'm just going to hot glue that to the back of the sign. Did keep wanting to pop off. Make sure that you get your hot glue dry on the step. It was a little resistant to gluing it to the wood, but a couple of times I was able to get it there. So I do want this to kind of stick up a little bit if I can. I tried to glue down the part that I want to stay down and tried to start bending up the top of the bucket hat a little bit. For this strap of the hat, I'm just going to use some of this like mint green burlap ribbon from the Dollar Tree. I think that would look really cute wrapped around his little bucket hat. I attached that with little hot glue here on the back. No need to go all the way around on this one. And then I'm also going to add some mesh ribbon to this. I got some mesh ribbon on Etsy, and I think it kind of looks like a fishing net, so I thought that would be a fun touch. Another item you could use is like the mesh ribbon from the Dollar Tree. It kind of gives you that fishing net vibe. And I thought that would be a fun feature there for his hat as well. So I just went over the top of that mint green with the mesh ribbon. Again, hot gluing it here on the back. And then I do want to add some fun coastal details to this project. Since it is a coastal scarecrow, I thought one of the Dollar Tree starfish would be really cute. So I'm going to glue one of those to his hat right about here. And I'm also going to glue the hat to the bottom of the starfish to try to make it stay up a little bit like this and flare out a bit. Now for the base of the sign, I'm just using a piece of craft wood there from the Dollar Tree. I mixed together some pumpkin orange with some white to give me a lighter color of orange. And I'm just going to paint the front, back, and sides of this anywhere you're going to be able to see the display piece. But I think this is going to be the perfect size to hold up our little pumpkin scarecrow head. Now to do that, I'm going to brace it up with some of the little Jenga blocks from the Dollar Tree. This part is a little bit tricky. What you want to do is brace this. So I'm going to go ahead and attach these hot glue down here to our wood base. I'm going to do one in each section, and then I went back and actually added a second one here to the middle. And then I'm going to hot glue that to the pumpkin sign itself. Now you don't want to glue it directly on there. You want it to kind of be a little bit at an angle where it looks like it's sitting back a little bit, and this is how mine turned out. Now the last few details, I thought we could add some seashells to the sign just to make it not quite so plain. I'm using some of the tiny seashells from the Dollar Tree and just kind of scattering those all on the bottom of our little coastal scarecrow to really up the coastal factor on this one. I tried to choose a variety of seashells, and I'm just going to attach those all with hot glue. Just kind of spacing these out on the bottom. And I really think that this scarecrow turned out so cute. I really love his little face there and his cute little beachy hat. Here it is, our little coastal scarecrow head using the pumpkin sign from the Dollar Tree, a fun freestanding sign for your decor. And I really think I did get the little bucket hat look there. Perfect for the beach for our little scarecrow using those purses from the Dollar Tree. And I love all the fun coastal touches like the starfish, the colors on this one, and like the little seashells there along the base. Isn't he so cute? For this DIY, I picked this up for $2.99, I think, at Goodwill the other day. A big metal pumpkin, and I thought I could definitely do something with this thriftlet. I'm going to first start by covering it with rope. This is the thinner rope from the Dollar Tree, so it's going to be a little bit longer. And I thought this would be so much easier than trying to cover all of this with twine because it's such a big project. And I want to make this into a really fun pumpkin candle holder with a ton of coastal appeal. So I started right there at the top, hot gluing it on and just simply wrapping the rope around. I found that one package of the rope made it about 1.5 of these pieces. So it didn't require as much rope as I thought. I'm just simply wrapping it around. Every now and then I would hot glue it to the metal just to keep it in place, but just most of the time on this was spent wrapping this, as you can see, because you have to bring, all of the rope through. And I just go all the way here to the bottom. I'm not going to cut it. I'm going to kind of glue it in place and then just pick another little piece of the pumpkin and start wrapping that as well. So if you find like a thrifted item like this is just a great starter piece. If it's just plain, it doesn't have like a candle holder in it already. It was just asking for decoration, and it's a really strong metal piece. So for $2.99, I had to decorate this for sure. So that is how far one package of the rope lasted in wrapping this. And I'm going to do that for all of the sides of this pumpkin. I think there's 8 sides, and I believe I used 5 packages of Dollar Tree rope. Again, just kind of hot gluing it so it stays in place every now and then, but basically I'm just wrapping it. And then I just continue that same piece. If my package, ends in the middle of one of the pieces of pumpkin, it is really easy to just start another package of rope and blend that in because that rope does blend really well. So I'm just going to wrap the whole thing. And then I also have plans to make a really fun candle inside. Since there's rope, I don't want to use a real candle, but I've got a great idea for some items from the Dollar Tree that I can use to make this really beautiful. So I'm going to speed this way up and wrap the rest of this pumpkin with rope, and you can see the entire process. If you're not at your crafting station, this would definitely be a good project to do in front of the TV. I do have one of those little Alexa shows on my crafting station, so I can watch YouTube videos or whatever on that. So you can put on a good podcast or something, or a good crafting video like, this one, and craft away. So I almost have it completed. This is the last one. I wrapped everything with the rope, and it went on pretty cleanly. Sometimes the brown rope from the Dollar Tree can have a lot of strings. I am going to go ahead and still burn all the fuzzies off with a lighter just to clean everything up. But overall, I think it looked pretty good here using the Dollar Tree rope. And I actually just got a package of rope from Walmart. I was kind of curious to try that and compare it to the Dollar Tree rope to see which one I like better. But I just cleaned everything up. Now, the pumpkin stem on there is still exposed with the metal, and I do want to cover all of the parts with this with rope, so I'm going to cover this with that rope too. I just started right there at the base, hot gluing that on, and I'm just going to glue this all on. I've seen people do similar projects with, wrapping it with a thinner twine, the jute twine, and I thought that the rope worked really well for a large project like this, kind of a larger version of that twine wrapped pumpkin. So I have the pumpkin stem too. I think the shape is fine on that. I just went ahead and cleaned that up with my lighter as well. And now we can make this beautiful rope pumpkin into a candle holder. I'm going to use a wood slice from the Dollar Tree and a battery operated candle. I found this great one. I think it looks really nautical. I'm going to try to make it look a little bit more coastal. And I wanted a big wood slice for the base of this. So I'm using one of the wood slice signs from the Dollar Tree and carefully removing the hanger and the staples. They are so hard to get off there. I find the Cricut leader to be the best to get those little tiny staples out of there without damaging the bark on the wood slice. But I think it's going to be a perfect base for this candle. I think the candle is really pretty from the Dollar Tree. It looks like it has wax on the sides, and I think it does because when I tried to take this navy color, which looked really, nautical, and make it look more coastal with some lighter blue paints, it was hard to cover it. It kind of cracks as you put the paint on there, but that's okay. I'm going to go over it with several coats of blue and distress it. I think this is the Cloudless by Apple Barrel, just a very light beachy blue color, and just kind of dragging that over. I do want to leave the top part of the candle still white. That part kind of lights up a little bit when you light up the battery operated candle. But this one was really pretty. It was one of the prettiest battery operated candles I think I have found from the Dollar Tree. If you can't find like the wood slice, you want to recreate something like this, you could use the wood slice coasters for the bottom too, but I kind of like the oversized nature of the sign. That way you'll be able to see the little wood slice on the edges of this candle. So as you can see, I went over it with a couple of coats of the cloudless, and then I'm going back in with a little ivory, just stressing it all over. I tried to wipe off that with a baby wipe without trying to take any of the paint off, but I did notice some of the navy definitely coming through. So I just went back in with my original color and distressed it. I just want it to look kind of coastal farmhouse and be in the same color scheme that I use for my coastal decor. So this is the wood sign we're going to use for the base. There's a little metal disc right here in the bottom of this pumpkin. I just add hot glue to that and put the wood slicer right inside to make a candle holder. And again, definitely only wanting to use like a faux candle on this because I want to light it. I'm going to go ahead and still use the twine that came with the candle, just putting it back on there, pushing it to where the colors kind of come together on there and testing this out. It seems to work great, and adding the candle to our candle holder. The last thing I'm going to add is one of the starfish from the Dollar Tree. They are white plastic. I'm going to paint mine ivory to make it look kind of bleached out. And really, that's all I think this needs. It's already got all of that rope detail on there, the blue and white candle, and the wood slice. So I just glued this to the top there, the pumpkin stem, as kind of a little statement piece at the top of this candle holder. It is a large candle holder. I really love it. I love all the rope on there. I think that turned out so well. So a fun thrift flip using this metal pumpkin that I found at the Goodwill store. Isn't that so pretty? This is what it looks like during the day. And then let me show you what it looks like lit up at night. The candle was nice and bright. Sometimes I struggle with finding a battery operated candle at the Dollar Tree that works well. So maybe with the price increase on the candles, they'll give us a little bit better quality candles like this one, because this one was really nice. I did actually just buy some battery operated candles from Walmart as well, because I know that they have some good ones too. But again, this is what it looks like during the day, and the candle even flickers at night. For this fall DIY, I'm going to take 3 pumpkins. I picked up a Dollar Tree pumpkin, a Goodwill pumpkin, and I actually got one at the Target Dollar Spot. I was trying to find 3 different sizes to form a pumpkin topiary, and this is going to be another version of a pumpkin lighthouse. This pumpkin lighthouse is going to be a more of an indoor one. For the base, I'm using this little wood square I actually got for, I think, $1 at Michael's. I've been trying to find some other sources for some craft materials since Dollar Tree be playing with us. And I just went ahead and removed all of the stems from our pumpkins. We're not going to need those. I can save those. For the top of my lighthouse, I'm going to use the little battery-operated candle lantern from the Dollar Tree. They have these in white and black, and honestly, either one would work really great for a little lighthouse. And this is great for indoors because it's not solar panel. It's got a battery inside of it. I just popped the little top off the top of this. I don't need that on the top of my lighthouse. And what I want to do is have each pumpkin be a different color to look like the stripes of a lighthouse. I'm going to do the middle pumpkin in white. It's already orange, so I have to cover that up. And I do that with a little sponge painting just with some white acrylic. I was thinking I want a blue and white striped lighthouse, but I want a different version, an indoor version with this one compared to the one that I've done before. And I really love the blue color of the pumpkin that I got from the Dollar Tree. I think I'll stay with that kind of color scheme. I'm going to have 2 blues and 1 white. So the tiny one's going to be blue too. But I thought it would be easier to paint the blue color over white than it would be to cover the blue over orange. So same thing here for the middle pumpkin. I did have to go over that with quite a few coats of white paint to really bring out that white color for the color scheme that I wanted for my stripes of my lighthouse. So I'm going to use Cloudless by Apple Barrel, which is almost the exact shade already of this pumpkin from the Target Dollar Spot, and I just kind of go all over. This is about the same size as the foam crafting pumpkin from the Dollar Tree, so I think you could make it work with that one if you needed to. I just went ahead and sponged that great cloudless blue color all over that one. I'm also going to be using that for our top pumpkin. This center pumpkin, again, is going to be the white, like a white stripe there on our lighthouse. And it did definitely require quite a few coats of paint to mask all of the colors on there. I just want it to be a nice flat white color to go with that soft blue. So I went ahead and finished off the top pumpkin. Again, painting it blue, Cloudless by Apple Barrel. I absolutely love that color. And I love all the soft shades on this DIY. Now for the base, I thought it would be fun to make a rocky base. So what I'm going to do is take some Dollar Tree stones and kind of encrust the outer edge of this so it makes it look like it's like on a rocky cliff or a little lighthouse. I'm just going to attach them with hot glue, using as much hot glue as I can to really kind of make sure this sticks, and just kind of varying the rocks there from the Dollar Tree to give us a fun texture. I just kind of take my time letting that glue set up. I don't want any of my rocks to pop off on this. Using hot glue with this can work. You could use a stronger glue if you wanted to. I was able to make it work just by kind of letting the hot glue set up. And I went all the way around the outside of this little wood base that I got at Michael's. Now I think I have room for another layer of rocks. It's going to kind of mask the corner a bit. So I did go around with the second round of ropes, just using hot glue to attach all the rocks here to the base. I think that looks pretty good. I'm going to go ahead and try to attach my pumpkin here. I added hot glue to the bottom of my foam pumpkin, but I think I've added a few too many rocks to really make contact. So I just used a couple of wood pieces here underneath of them to have something to be able to glue this pumpkin to. And I sit this right on top of our rocky lighthouse base here. I did flip it over and reinforce the rocks with some more hot glue to try to make that a little bit more stable. I want to make sure that those don't just pop off. And that is the bottom of our little pumpkin lighthouse. To make it sturdier, I'm going to use a wood dowel from the Dollar Tree. Just putting that down into the foam like that. And I do think I'm going to have to make this a little bit shorter. I don't want the wood dowel to be sticking out at the top of the pumpkin stack. So I cut that down a little bit, added some hot glue, and attached the wood dowel right straight down the middle. It's just like making a pumpkin topiary to make a pumpkin lighthouse, so that's really fun. I'm going to poke a hole here in the center pumpkin as well with a wood dowel, so I can just slide that right on the wood dowel I already am using here. Trying not to cause any damage to my pumpkin if I can help it. And our third and final pumpkin is going to be the small one that I got at Goodwill. It's really kind of funny walking around Goodwill. They have so many Dollar Tree items for so much more than they charge at the Dollar Tree. I just slid this last one on there and secured the wood dowel inside with a little bit of hot glue. So right now we kind of have a pumpkin topiary on a rock base. I love the idea of the little candle lantern here for the top of the lighthouse. I do need a way to be able to take it on and off though. And so I thought Velcro might work well for that. I was able to find some Velcro at the Dollar Tree. There's some other options you could use too. Just something that is going to attach it to the top, but make it where it is removable so that you can turn the switch on and off on the light. So I just cut the Velcro from the Dollar Tree down into some tiny strips that I can then attach to the top pumpkin. And I think that'll work, so I can make that removable and it won't just fall off the top here of our lighthouse. Now let's draw some windows and some doors on this pumpkin lighthouse to give it some fun details. I'm just going to use gray on this one. I'm using my paint pen and I'm going to draw on some little windows here. I just did an arch shape with a straight line at the bottom. I was trying to decide if I wanted to do like cartoon windows like that. I do go back and fill them in and add a few more details. For the door here on the bottom, I just did a simple arch door and painted this all in gray. I thought the gray color would be a nice neutral color. I think blues or tans would go really well too. And I'm just going to go in here and finish off painting these, filling those in. A window on each pumpkin and a door here on the bottom pumpkin. This is an indoor pumpkin lighthouse DIY, and I really love how this turned out. For the windows, I just drew the little arch window on there with a white paint pen with a finer tip and drew like little panels on there. And I can also add some fun details here to our little lighthouse door to really make this special. It's almost done, but I thought a fun texture around the rocky shore would be to add a little bit of Spanish moss as well. It's going to give it a fun texture, kind of look like seaweed and stuff that you would find at the shore. I just take little bundles and hot glue those in here with the rocks all the way around the base of the lighthouse. And one advantage too of adding the rocks to the bottom is it makes the base even heavier and makes this item stand up really well. Here it is, our little pumpkin stack lighthouse with the little lighted candle there on the top of our pumpkin lighthouse. And I think I did a pretty good job of finding 3 pumpkins, all slightly different sizes, to form the pumpkin topiary and the pumpkin lighthouse that I designed it to be. Let me show you what it looks like lit up at night. I think this is so cute. The details are really fun on this. And again, you can make your lighthouse stripes any colors that you want just by making each pumpkin a different color. Isn't that so cute? I really love how the pumpkin lighthouse turned out. I really hope you enjoyed today's 15 Coastal Fall Dollar Tree DIYs. I always have so much fun recapping all of the DIYs that we make here on the channel and bringing them all to you in one crafting marathon. Let me know which DIY was your favorite down in the comments below. And this is my QR code if you would like to buy me a coffee. Enjoy the final reveal.
Better days to come and carry us like wind in our sails. Hold on tight, I can smell the shore, it's right in front of us if we just hold on tight. This vision that I saw is getting closer every dawn. We are dreamers of the shore. 7 years now on this boat, and we all know where we belong. Just wait. For our home to show on the horizon, soon we'll be there. Hold on tight, I can smell the shore, it's right in front of us if we just hold on tight. This vision that I saw is getting closer every dawn. We are dreamers of the shore when we can't read the sky. We just sail with the wind that we've got. And when we're drowning in doubt, just keep on believing. We are dreamers of the shore. Thoughts are too big. Can I get some comfort, please? I guess I should have been honest. It breaks in my heart. It's weighing me down, baby. I'm like a river that's overflowed. The sooner you know it, the less do we hurt. Let me speak the truth. I know you don't wanna face it. You think it's too late, but I can see past the rain. Won't you lay it on me? Turn the page and burn it. Let's make up a big bonfire on the beach with the stars as our lighters, and throw our problems in the flame. Throw our problems in the flame. We fell down to the bottom, so bottom up please. We're gonna get over this. I see the smoke in the mirrors. I'm holding the key, one step away from salvation. You're like the ocean, setting me free. Out in the open, I'm picking up speed. No bad thoughts penetrate. Hold me.
Thank you so much for making it all the way to the end of today's video. That helped so much. And I also want to give a huge thank you to all of my YouTube members for supporting my channel. Thank you so much to Melinda Elizabeth, Jamie Job, Janae Farrington, Pamelia Wren, Donna Schreiner, I Am Mojo Jojo, Maren Christensen, Adrian Brolt, Debbie Middleton, Donna Tanner, Kim Rogers, Maria Cruz Pagan, Pal Puppy Life, Renee Albanese, Mindy Hupp, Jenny, and our newest member, Debbie Austin. Thank you so much for being a member. If you would like to become a Crafty Beach Bud member, all you have to do is hit the join button next to today's video on your phone or computer. You're going to get early ad-free access to my content here on YouTube and other perks as well. And you know what? We would love to see your DIY. So make sure you're sharing with us in the Facebook group, always linked in the description of the video. It's a private group, and I'm also really active on Facebook. I would also really appreciate it if you would hype today's video. That will help it get to more people. Would you like even more fall crafting inspiration? Be sure to check out one of these fall DIY videos right here. And until next time, happy crafting for fall.